Brian, can you take roll?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Godus.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
Here.
Counselor Hershey.
Here.
Counselor Kaup.
Here.
Counselor Dem.
Here.
Counselor Stepp.
Here.
And Counselor Busso. We have a full quorum.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, is there any agenda changes or conflicts of interest this evening that anybody has? All right, seeing none, we will go for citizens appearing before council. This is public comment for items not appearing on the agenda. If it appears on the agenda, let me know.
I'm gonna just get you.
Oh, for public comment now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, whoever has public comment for items not appearing on the agenda, they can come on up and give their public comment.
First, we have Heather Exby.
Okay, so just raise your hand if there's anything not on the agenda. So this isn't on the agenda.
I don't think so.
Okay, come on up.
Awesome, thanks.
Absolutely. Please give your name and if you live in the city.
705 Cowden Drive. And this is just regarding an accident that I was involved in.
Lori?
April 30th.
Lori, could you maybe swing that? There you
This
go.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sorry.
I will be very happy.
Okay, I was involved in an accident on April 30th, and I did not have my proof of insurance, neither did the other gal, no injuries. And it was in the roundabout, and I went through the roundabout, and this lady tried to pass me on the center of the roundabout and hit me. And she got, on the police report, it says aggressive behavior, but she was not cited. And this is what I wrote Evan Wagstrom, because I was pretty upset that we don't have, I was told that the reason why he didn't cite her is because the police have limited time to work on things. And when they cite somebody, then they have to do more paperwork, which they don't have time to do because there's not enough of them. So, whoops, sorry. Anyway, I would just like to point out what I said to him. And he finally did, and she did not have insurance. I was asked to bring my insurance right away, which I did try to do, or else I wouldn't get the police report. But then all of a sudden the police report was ready. So I'm very, very confused. And so Evan finally got back to me and he said, oh, shoot, I'm so sorry. I thought I was totally prepared. Darn. Thank you for the information, Officer Wagstrom. As I know, the police department is short on help. I am, however, disappointed in the woman who hit me was not given a ticket. I understand this takes more time on your part. This is how things escalate and becomes worse when you don't tell people and make sure that they understand that they did something wrong. And that's how you do that with citations. That's the first thing you do. But there's not enough time. She definitely did this on purpose. It was not an accident. She was aggressive and needs to be made aware of her behavior. It's not acceptable. A vehicle is a deadly weapon when it's used like that. Officer Scott told me there were other more important things. And this is where it starts. When you don't take care of things and nip it in the bud, then you keep on letting things go. They just don't have the time. The police are understaffed. And right now we're going through terrific growth spurts and we don't even have enough police to take care of our community as it is right now. We have people running red lights. We have people blocking intersections where it's a safety issue. We have people walking out in front of cars because they think just because they're a pedestrian, they can just walk right out in front of a moving vehicle. There's engine brakes. There's just generally ignoring the law, running through stop signs like this one right out here. There's so many people that don't stop. And anyway, I just said I'll be going to city council to let them know that we need to pay our police officers more so they can live here number one, and we need more officers. And thank you to the chief here for being here in our town. And thank you guys for being more responsive as of late, I've noticed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Deborah, we didn't, in the last like 18 months, have we given our police officers a raise of some modest amount?
We have given our police department a significant raise, yes.
Just want to make sure that was said. It's public record. We can probably get that for you if we need to. Anybody else from the public like to give comment, public comment for items not appearing on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we will come back for Deborah.
Forgive me, I'm going to read this. I wanted to let you all know that my last day with the city will be July 8th. The last 6 years with Glenwood Springs have been the most rewarding and challenging times of my career. I want to thank my staff and our city attorney for all they have done for our city and all the support they have provided to me. They are by far the best staff I have ever had the pleasure to work with. They truly care about their jobs, each other, and this community. I will miss them all. I also want to thank this council and all of the previous councils that have supported me and my staff over the last 6 years. We have done so many fantastic projects together, such as the Grand Avenue Bridge detour, the 27th Street Bridge replacement, total reconstruction of South Midland, saving our water system after the Grizzly Creek fire, redoing Two Rivers Park and all of our downtown revitalization, and so much more. We are a small city and a small staff, but we have truly done tremendous things with your support and encouragement. Thank you.
So maybe we could do council comments. We could do a couple of rounds, but maybe at the first round, if folks had something that they wanted to say about Deborah and that city manager, our city manager, our city manager, that'd be great. And then we can always come back for the normal stuff. So if anybody has that. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
I just want to say that, Deborah, I always have questions. You always are quick to answer, and it's been amazing working with you. And I think we're going to have a big gap. And I appreciate that you have said that you will be here to answer questions even as you move on. Thank you so much.
Deborah, I would just like to say thank you so much for all of your service to the city, and I'm really sorry to see you go, as I think all of council will be. You have served the city with enthusiasm and undying dedication at all hours of the day and night. You've been so receptive to council and constant communication with a lot of us, just keeping us aware of what's going on in the community. And you've just shown a lot of integrity. And I think you can see that in the respect you've earned from your staff. You've built an incredible team in the hiring. We've gone through a lot of leadership changes, department heads, and you've brought on great staff that serves the city well and hopefully will serve the city well for years to come. So very sorry to see you go, but I understand it's an extremely challenging and difficult job. And I thank you for your years of service and wish you the best of luck going forward.
Thank you.
I came in during at the tail end of COVID. And so for me, I had this orientation via Zoom and everything else. And Deborah was such an advocate for allowing me to get on to council without having it be painful, meaning that she bent over backwards to teach me everything I needed to know to be a part of this. I will look out and see fire or stop traffic. And before I can even say, I wonder what's going on, I'll get a text from her. I don't think the community sees what happens behind the scenes with a city manager and how 24/7 the position can be. And you did that with such grace and such efficiency that it will be hard to find a replacement for you. And like Shelley said, you have set a foundation that I know will be felt in the structure and the systems that you created here. And we so appreciate it. But I think that once again, the community doesn't see, because we're dealing with stopped or difficult traffic on Grand Avenue Bridge, but you dealt with Grand Avenue Bridge, 27th Street Bridge, a pandemic, and other, and that's not just dealing with the water line break or staffing challenges. What she has done for our community, she does deserve a standing ovation, even though she is so humble, she doesn't want it. So thank you, and we will miss you.
Oh, well, Ingrid took a little bit away. I can't think of a more challenging time. Fire, a plague, me, and other, no, other things. But seriously, public service is truly a higher calling. And I think you're going to find, because I've transitioned private, public, this is some of the most fun, if it's not always the most lucrative thing to do. And I really appreciate your service. And I know the people of Glenwood Springs, whether they disagree with the government or agree with the government, appreciate what you do because you care about what's best for this community. And that's important. Water, like Ingrid was saying, minor things to really the major things we've been going through. So I'm going to call you anyway when something bad. Thank you, Deborah.
So I've had an opportunity in my 46 years in this community to work with a number of city managers or against a number of city managers, the case may be. And I've also sat in Carl's seat and had to deal with the idiosyncrasies of the personalities sitting on the dais. And I can tell you without equivocation that if you're not the best, you're among the best that we've ever had in this city. And everything else everybody has said, the text at 10 o'clock at night going, don't worry about this, we got it handled. I'm going, worry about what? And so I do worry about it, but then you write me 10 minutes later, said it's out. And we do appreciate that. Keep me advised of when people call us, so want to know what's going on. We do know what's there. I wish you all the best in next endeavor. And I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to be very successful for your clients in that next field. That fundraising is just a niche. And I have to thank you for those people in that back row and those that are not in the back row, because it's the best staff I've ever seen in this city in the years I've been involved. And it's because of what you brought to this community. And I did the back row intentionally. And whatever this guy's name is, whatever he does, he's okay. No, Brian does a great job. I apologize, Brian. Thank you for bringing to me putting my foot in my mouth one more time. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I had something in my throat.
Just brief, Deborah, we only had about 2 months together, but so far I enjoyed every moment and appreciate every part of your professionalism and your personality. Really get along with you. Thank you very much for your service. Good luck to you.
Well, we tried real hard to make it hard for Deborah to leave. We gave her great reviews because staff gave her great reviews. The community gave her great reviews. Deborah would often say, geez, Jonathan, they're going to run me out of town. And I don't actually recall anybody from the community ever. And this is, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic saying that Deborah Figueroa, that city manager, is not listening. She's not doing what's in the best interest of this community. She has her own agenda. Never did I hear that. Deborah and I'd say we came up together because I think she was the new manager about maybe 6 months before I was elected. But we didn't. She came to the city incredibly prepared, incredibly ready to go and hit the ground running. She navigated the previous council that Shelley and I were on. The iteration of this council is no one on this council was there to sit for the interview that hired you. But through every iteration, I think the thing that's remained, and the community needs to know this, is that we've always thought that Deborah was the right person, the best person for this job. If I could summarize in one word, at least our relationships, it would be no. Because Deborah tells me that all the time. But she does it in a kind way.
She says yes to me.
Well, but she's always very good about, I think, navigating when we have an idea or a plan or an idea that's going to move this community forward. Like, well, no, because when 3 other council people tell me the same thing, then we can move forward. And I think that has been one of the lessons that, among many, that Deborah has imparted to me. So I'm going to miss you in this role. I think the community is going to miss you in this role. We're so lucky that the community gets to keep you. Deborah is going to stay in this community in her new position. She's working remotely. She'll still be working with the city in a capacity as we work with this consulting firm. And unlike my fellow counselors, I hope you feel miserably and come crawling back to us on your knees. Thank you, Deborah, sincerely from the bottom of my heart. You are leaving a legacy that's going to transcend you and many other staff and manager changes and iterations of council. Thank you.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
No, we got to talk more about that.
And one more thing.
So who wants to say how great Carl is?
Is he leaving?
No, just cricket stuff. All right, who wants to be the first person to give actual council comment and follow that up? Go ahead, Charlotte.
Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, I had the opportunity on Wednesday to be at Hanging Lake as we began to reintroduce Hanging Lake to the community. And for those who haven't heard, reservations, I think, are open next Monday or Tuesday. And hopefully, if everything goes well, you'll be able to hike from the bottom to the top as of June 24th or 25th. What was it?
25th.
25th, thank you. And just even in the report, there was a lot of reporters and then some of us public officials, if that's what you want to call us, but even the reporters were excited about this. And if you've seen some of the reporting, they've come about, this is a big issue. This is a iconic amenity that we have in this city, and we support it highly. We got a $2.2 million grant from GOCO, which is the but thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
John's got it. And that's to make it permanent. Much better trail. That design is going to start hopefully later this year. It's going to be several years in the making, but it's a phenomenal opportunity. So I want you all to be aware of that. The other thing I want to do is just briefly respond to Lori's comment. The chief made a presentation to the DDA the other day and talked about his staffing, and his staffing has increased tremendously over the last year. And I think in large part to what the chief's been able to do and I think the resources we have council have given him. But I want to give the chief kudos because he's really trying to recruit people. It's a very difficult area to recruit people in right now because of the George Floyd and all the other stuff. Colorado passed statutes which makes liability for officers to be higher. It's a real difficult time to bring people into this very dedicated profession, very dangerous profession, even in a small community like this. So I want the chief to know that we recognize the efforts he's made. And I do appreciate Lori bringing this to our attention, but we are trying to do the best we can. And I'm actually surprised that was a citation wasn't given, because if it needed to be, and we can't make those decisions up here, but every time I've ever seen a police officer, they use their discretion as the right time and not the right time to do that. So I just want the committee to know that the chief's doing a great job of trying to get people and staffing up to full speed. We're only down 7 positions, which is not a lot, but 5. Oh, we've reduced since earlier in the week. That's great. Christians tell me 5 as well. So anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you for saying that very much.
Ingrid?
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that it's graduation week all over the valley. And just a huge congratulations to kids. I know that Lori's got a graduating granddaughter. Yeah. Carl, there's, so staff, I have one. I think that throughout the community, these kids have worked hard, and so too have the parents to support them in the last couple of years, which have been particularly hard on these, on this graduating class, and just encourage them to have a great summer and a successful future, regardless of if they go to a traditional college or a trade school or whatever the path that they find themselves on. Just wishing them all the best.
Charlie?
I have an update for city council on the Soper's View property that's south of town there. For anybody who doesn't know, it's approximately 130 acres up above Walmart, where we had the cleanup last year of the homeless camps. City's been working very hard with the property owners and ABLT to get that property put into a conservation easement. So I had a couple of questions if I could get direction from council tonight. Aaron Quinn from ABLT has been working very hard on the grant concept through the Katina Foundation, which is kind of related. It's from the Walton family and to go hand in hand with Walmart. But that grant requires that either the city or the county own that property ultimately. And I think we've both been very clear, both the city and the county, that that doesn't work because of different legalities. So that essentially takes that grant source off the table. And but there are other sources that will be available for that. So in a conversation with Commissioner Jankowski, he suggested that the city come to the county, the BOCC, and request funding. They have approximately 200,000 in conservation trust funds every year. And
Oh, you're good. I'm just listening to make sure it's loud enough. You're fine.
okay, so they're suggesting that we, the city, go to them and request funding from that funds to help move this project forward. And, you know, thinking in Aaron's opinion, the whole project, getting trails built and everything, getting conservation easement done is looking like it would likely be less than $500,000. So I believe with a generous contribution and partnership from the county, along with city funds, and we can go after other grant funds, we can move this forward. So I'm looking for direction. Is council okay with working with city staff to go to the BOCC and request conservation trust funding so that they can be a partner in this project?
Shelley, do we have to show matching funds to the county when we request that amount right now, or can we do that later?
I don't believe that's a requirement. We can probably talk about, you know, the city has some conservation trust funds, but that was not part of the discussion that I had with,
So we can just request the funds, or the city can?
right.
Do you want to make a motion for that?
I don't, not during council comments, really. I guess, do we need a motion? It's just kind
We
of.
would have an
direction.
opportunity to put this on the regular agenda. I think this is more just Shelley trying to keep you guys up to speed on what's going on. There's an opportunity there. Is it something that we can pop onto the January, time's going by, June 6th agenda and you know, have a vote on it then.
Do we need a vote to go to the county?
You know, I think on
Request
this
funding?
one, maybe we should to go request the funding just because there's it's a little bit more of a formal ask of the county commissioners. I was thinking about that since we chatted.
Kind of a partnership.
Kind of a partnership. I think it makes sense.
Okay.
That they
that's
know
fine.
that the full council's in support.
Okay.
Just a question, Shelley. I know that my concern before was, you know, where we have the funds and the ongoing meetings and stuff. And I'm not saying I'm against this idea anymore than I was against it when I think I voted no last time, but that was the issue, was the funding and what it would cost. So I'm still a little bit concerned and bringing up, you know, a comment without having numbers in front of me. I'm a little bit worried about it. You know, that's where it's, I don't mind looking at this and saying, okay, this is what the financial picture looks like. And I may well support going to the county commissioners. I prefer to look at this maybe as an agenda item second and then make
Okay.
that decision.
We could do that. We do also, we did give direction at the last meeting, I believe, to go for an RFP to get kind of a cost estimate and trail design.
Okay.
So that I think is in the works and will be coming to us also.
Just as a point of reference, do we want to get that RFP back so we have a better idea of what the costs are before we go to the county, or what
I
are your
don't know,
suggestions?
because if it delays it too long, that funding might go somewhere else in the
Okay.
county. So,
Okay.
the suggestion was that,
We can give you an idea of where we're at timeline on both of those things at the next meeting.
Yeah, let's just do that then. Next agenda.
Thanks, Shelley.
Anybody else?
I'll be missing the next meeting. I'll be floating down the Green River in Desolation Canyon. I just want you to all know.
Can't you try just? do a
I cannot,
satellite
I
phone?
can't zoom in.
Satellite phone.
Truthfully, that's kind of my husband's. That's a question for my husband, not for me.
It does, below Moab, yeah. Anybody else?
Yes, I have one thing.
Thank you.
I have one thing, Jonathan.
Go ahead, Paul. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I have to put my voice out. Somebody asked me about the picnic tables at the park on 7th Street across from the parking area where the municipal, the old water plant was. That I guess there's a little park there with the sunflowers. And we used to have picnic tables out there. Is that temporary or are they going back or?
I will have to ask.
Okay.
I do not know.
All right, they used them when they were asking.
Are we putting that? I mean, probably, but yeah, I'll see if we're putting the picnic tables back.
Okay, thanks.
Just briefly, I just want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. For whatever reason you're here, we don't usually have packed rooms like this unless it's something people really, really hate. So I'm encouraged because I think a lot of people are here to encourage us to do things that maybe they would like to see happen instead of things they would like to see not happen. So thank you, everybody, sincerely for taking time out of your evening to come and show up and have your voice heard. All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Wilman, seconded by Counselor Kopp. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1 with Counselor Hershey negative. Item number 10, Parks and Rec Commission appointments. Ms. Wusso. Counselor Wusso, excuse me.
I have had a chance to interview both Ashley Moffett and Katie Knapp, and they are wonderful options as alternates on our Parks and Rec Board. They both are very enthusiastic and knowledgeable about both this department as well as the city. And I'm excited to make a motion to appoint them both as alternates.
Second. Or did she have it? Just again, second? No.
No, I think that's fine. Yeah, Counselor. Ah.
I'm excited to second.
It's been moved by Counselor Wusso, seconded by Counselor Hershey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right. Item 11, the DDA Downtown Development Authority appointments.
Is that me? Okay, excellent. Well, oh, yeah. Counselor Wilman and I had the chance to interview 3 candidates for the DDA, and it was Brittany Rippey, it was Matt, I forgot his last name, terribly sorry, Cook, and it was Shelley Fishbein, something like that. And Christian. 4 people we interviewed for 3 positions. That's what it was. Okay, excellent. So after sitting down a long time and talking to everybody, it became clear that we had 4 really strong candidates, but we made a decision to appoint 3. And I would like to move to appoint Christian Henney, Matt Cook, and Shelley Fishbein to the DDA board.
It's been moved by Counselor Dem, seconded by Counselor Wilman. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-1 with dissension from Counselor Wusso.
Thank you.
Dissension, sorry, that sounded very ominous. Negative, I don't know. Dissent, yeah, sorry. Okay, item number 12, Imagine Glenwood Take a Minute campaign presentation.
Which one was, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Imagine.
Good evening. I tend to talk loud because I think people can't hear me because I usually can't hear you. So if I talk too loud, let me know. My name is Diane Reynolds. I am the co-founder of Imagine Glenwood with Sumner Schachter. We also developed a branch of that grassroots organization to form Take a Minute, Slow Down in Town. Our long-range goal is to get into the minds of everyone in this community and encourage them to invest in a daily, tangible way. We ask tonight for you to reaffirm your support, which you voiced in May of 2019. And we started out with just some 2-sided yard signs and a wonderful steering committee group made up of Valley View, Alpine Bank, Roaring Fork School District, and countless other organizations throughout the community. So if you would reaffirm your support, we are getting ready to do some additional campaigning and also have another ask tonight. We will be putting 2-sided yard signs out again beginning tomorrow morning through the weekend. They have been graciously and gratefully accepted by many residents that live along our most traveled roadways. CDOT will be posting the messaging on the electronic signs. Big SIDS is going to join in the messaging and in their own original way. Gabe Chenoweth did an interview with Take a Minute, and that should have been posted already. And finally, we have a scissor cut out ad that will be appearing in the Post Independent. We're going to be trying to educate drivers throughout the entire Roaring Fork Valley through to Rifle of the futility of driving at excessive speeds. We've got a lot of residents and people on the road, and we need to be very mindful of everyone's safety. Tonight, we're really excited to bring to the table a traffic calming device, which has been already vetted by Snowmass Police in Snowmass Village. They've had such wonderful success with this device that they are budgeted for 5 more of these purely portable signs this year, and they will again put the signs in their budget for next year. So I've discussed this with Terry and Deb. We took probably about an hour in the building to discuss through the potential plus sides of this. We believe that number one, it fully supports our police department. It is a 24/7 presence on the roadways that it is deployed on. These devices are also portable and movable. So if we do not find that they're effective, and my hope is that they would appear on Grand Avenue to begin with, which is our most trafficked street, they can be easily moved. In comparison to a police officer's salary and or a mobile sign, which is $15,000, these are very small chips off the block to give us some immediate relief along our roadways. The key for these devices is that they're programmable with messaging. My favorite, and I hope that you will agree, to preserve small town character, which we have heard over and over is a desire for our community. When drivers drive 25, the sign says simply, "Thank you." I don't know about you, but to be thanked for a kindness or courtesy, whether it's for an amazing city manager or a job well done anywhere, that positive reinforcement can speak volumes. This is a positive way to get drivers' attention versus a punishment method, which is a ticket. I believe we have a visual of these Evoli signs, and I believe Terry has additional information for you. I believe they typically are deployed. The most entry-level one is a single lane, not only data collecting, but radar detecting sign. We could start out with those along Grand Avenue, and if we find they're not effective there, they can easily be moved to the neighborhoods, which are also struggling with speeders and traffic that do not behave the signage along the roadway. I believe that it's very supportive of our local police. And again, it helps to support our messaging, which is how we drive and what our values are is reflective of our community. We will continue with letters to the editor to continue to worm our way into everyone's minds to get them to understand that this is a daily tangible investment in how we see our city. If you have any questions for me, that would be wonderful. But I think Terry would be the one to really speak intelligently about these portable radar signs.
Thank you, Diane. Does anybody have a question for Diane specifically before Terry gets up? Go ahead, Charlie.
I support.
Hey, John.
I support the things you're doing. A question I have is, have you taken this to the Transportation Commission for a recommendation?
Charlie, as you are maybe aware, we have petitioned to the Transportation Commission for over 5 years for calming. To be honest with you, I decided to take this directly to Terry and Deb. I was so excited about this concept and the fact that it supports small town character. My impatience, I think, got the better of me.
No, I
So
appreciate it.
I apologize for going directly to people that I thought could maybe be of the quickest help.
No apology needed. That was just a question.
Yes.
Diane, maybe you should take a minute.
Can I say?
My question for you is in similar vein. What does the chief of police think of this? Have our police departments weighed in on this as well?
That would be a question for Terry and Deb. I spoke with them over 2 weeks ago, and I don't know if the chief was looped into this.
Okay.
So I will speak and Chief Darris can join me.
Ingrid, do you have something
I
for
have
Diane?
checked in with our maintenance division,
For Diane or Deborah?
our police division.
to the mic?
Oops, sorry.
Or
Sure,
hold over you.
for just a moment. So yes, I have reached out to CDOT and I have reached out to Chief Darris, trying to, and our maintenance division about the feasibility of these signs across the State Highway 82 corridor. I think in general, I think that Chief Darris and I both see the same thing, that, we have a lot of signs across the corridor. And I do think that especially signs like this where they have an immediate presence, they're flashing at you, they're telling you things. They're even being polite, as Diane said. I think they do have an effect. I do think it wears off over time. I think that we as a community, especially people that commute through the corridor, they become immune to our signs. I think that it's a small investment. I think it's worth a shot. I think it's very similar in nature to the Take a Minute campaign. It'll just be one more step to take in terms of signage. I do think that, it would come out of the traffic calming budget that we have. And this year we have about 25,000 in the street tax that's allocated towards traffic calming. In the past years, particularly last year, we told the Transportation Commission that they could have this budget and allocate this budget. So I think that it's worthwhile to bring this back to the Transportation Commission for more discussion. I do think that the Transportation Commission has had some similar concerns in that, how effective is it? Is it a good use of our budget? Will we see results? Will we see people reduce their speed? I have spoken to CDOT and they have one of these radar units out by Redstone. They have them on Highway 24 near Minturn. So they have some track record in terms of being installed on a highway. To be able to really work well with a 2-lane highway like we have, the price goes up. Right now I have a quote for $6,500 for 2 units. And if we wanted to get 2 units that would register, be able to see 2 lanes, it's about $25,000. And that would be our total traffic calming budget. So, a definite difference in cost. It may be worth trying just the single lane approach and see what we get. I think it should go back to the Transportation Commission for more discussion. Does anybody have any specific questions for me?
Anybody's questions for Terry?
Just one quick one.
Go ahead.
Is that the initial ask is the 6,000 for just to put 2 units on Grand? Or would we look at other locations in town initially? Because is this similar to what we have on Midland? right now where it
In some
flashes?
ways, it's
Okay.
actually a little bit smaller. It's a 14-inch unit.
Okay.
I want to turn my computer around and let you see it, but I guess the public wouldn't be able to see it. They're relatively small. They can be attached to a pole.
Okay,
And so it's a very easy installation.
okay.
And I think your question is, would they go first on Grand and then maybe other places? I think Diane proposed that, Grand Avenue is really our worst case in terms of need for traffic calming. So I think we would try to start there. And then if we didn't see compliance, or effectiveness, maybe we'd move it off to other arterials, Midland, Blake.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Terry, what denotes, how do you measure effectiveness?
So, we're trying to reduce speed. So ideally, this does actually have a radar, so you can see, people coming and, register whether they're going the speed initially, in which case they flash, thank you. Or, it'll tell you you're too high, and presumably it would tell you or you were under the speed. But I think we would get, record of that like we do with our speed trailer. So I think that we could assess, how fast people were approaching the sign, whether they recognize the sign, whether they slowed down and responded to the sign or not.
And if it's being deployed in SNOMES, has SNOMES do they have measurable data that shows that it is working?
I haven't talked to the engineer from SNOMES. I can make that call and see what they think of it. Like Diane said, it sounds like they're ordering more units. Maybe that's a positive sign.
Okay. Any other questions for Terry?
I have a question.
Since she talked to them, I'd like to know what she found out.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I haven't. Oh, go ahead.
I
Have
said
you
she
talked to
talked.
SNOMES?
I spoke with the police chief in Snowmass. They've been very pleased with this device. Some construction crews that have been up there actually purchased them for themselves around their construction sites, letting the chief know that they were going to donate them back to the city when the job was done. I just think that the thank you on this sign is so key to our long-term well-being. If we continue to promote the take a minute messaging throughout the entire valley, I think that we can begin to facilitate change within the minds of every driver. We all know that once we make up our mind to do something or not do something, we tend not to slip back. It's just a commitment. The thank you is so important to the atmosphere of our community. We thank people for actually behaving themselves while they're here. So I would love to just please give this a try. CDOT has approved these devices. What is the harm in just taking this next step and stopping the delay? We've got traffic fatigue. We need something. And we don't have the officer force to do enforcement, which I don't think is the best solution.
All right. Thank you, Diane. Is there any other questions for staff?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Terry. Or Terry. Go ahead, Deborah. Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Paula for
Paula.
Terry. Excuse me.
We keep talking about the messaging. Is there testing on the messaging? Can it change if we're not seeing a response? Is there anything anywhere that tells us this is where you get the best response off whatever messaging? And then on top of that, did I understand this right? You can have one message if they go 25 and a different message if they're going too fast? Is that, okay. Sorry, I just want to know if there's been any studies on what messaging works best. How's that?
I don't know. That's something I don't know.
Okay.
I do know that you can change the message. I don't know if we can add multiple messages. I'll have to check on that.
Okay.
So I do know that we can choose one. It can acknowledge, thank you, you're going the right speed. I'm not 100% sure that we can say you're going to get arrested or something else.
I like that one. No, I'm kidding. That was a joke.
Any other question?
Yeah, I want to hear what Chief Dare says. Like, what are your thoughts on this? Are you comfortable if this goes into place?
Well, conceptually, I support, and I have spoken with Diane and Terry. Conceptually, I agree that it's a good idea, but I have to be honest and tell you that I think it's topical.
Okay.
Because what happens is, like Terry mentioned, alluded to, that people become immune to these signs, much like we see on Midland Avenue. They know that they're there, and I get that these are portable, so we can move them around, but there's really no teeth behind that. So I think it's a nominal investment, like they're talking about. But then what are we looking at getting, whether it's traffic data? Particularly with Grand Avenue, there's a lot of conversation about speed on Grand Avenue. Statistically speaking, we don't have any data that really suggests, based on primary collision factors, that speed is the reason for these collisions that we see. If anything, it's quite the opposite, where it's low speed collisions. Because the volume of traffic, people aren't paying attention, so you get these rear end collisions because there's such a congestion there. Another thing that we take a look at, and I'm certainly no traffic engineer, primarily because there's a lot of math involved. But Terry can tell you that we look at critical speeds when we look at these kinds of things, critical speed, and what may be in the 85th or the 80th percentile of traffic speeds. And again, specifically with Grand Avenue, we just don't see, at least the traffic crash data that we have, that's prevalent in Glenwood. But I don't have any objection to what we're trying to do. Again, if it's some kind of message that may get somebody's attention, over the long term, again, I think that people just become immune because you see that same message over and over and
Yeah.
over. And again, down the road, and this is a different topic, certainly for the budget time, but I do think that we as a community could invest in a specific traffic enforcement officer who's a lot more effective, because then people see that person moving around and you know, in the morning or in the afternoon commutes or whatever. And so they're aware that we're out there on these, and that their sole duty is to enforce traffic laws. So people are more concerned about being stopped or being found in violation of these rules.
Okay.
Counselor Hershey? Of course.
Chief, so can I get that job?
I'm sorry?
You'll have to resign from council. I just want you to know you're welcome to have that job but we'll have to resign from council. in order
That's
to do
true.
it. Yeah.
That's for that
No, but
application.
seriously, so what you were saying is that speed is not a major factor in many of these instances. In fact, we have so much traffic on Grand that speed is really not an issue, correct?
Well, I'm sure there are speeders. There's no
Of course,
question
there are
about that.
speeders. There's
But
speeders everywhere.
Absolutely. But by and large, and based solely on traffic collision data that we have in-house, that is not, the primary collision factors for the collisions that we do have are not speed related.
Thank
Where
you.
you ask a state patrol officer, and that's typically what they find.
On the
highway.
interstate.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief, so much.
Chief Jarvis, I have one more question for you, and that is that are there any auxiliary streets within the community that you notice speed being an issue? Like is Blake Avenue is one that we
Sure.
speak of.
Yes, there are. You know, Highway 6 is a good one, and what contributes to that, and again, I'll defer to Terry, but is the size of those roadways increases. You know, that's why we have higher speed limits on some of these roadways. And so Highway 6 in particular, there's not a whole lot of stop signs or very few, so the speeds can pick up. So a roadway like that, Blake, you know, as an alternative route, and some of these other roads, Midland's already being addressed. So I do think there are some for sure. And again, I want to make sure I'm clear to the community that I don't oppose it at all, what they're
Yeah,
proposing.
yeah.
But I want to make sure we also are clear that don't expect miracles overnight,
Mhm,
because this
mhm.
is not necessarily the
Sure.
vehicle to achieve that.
Okay, well, with that in mind,
Oh.
I.
Are you
ahead.
going to make a motion?
No, I was
Okay.
actually gonna
Sorry.
make a comment, but that's cool. It's a segue to a motion, and that is that I think that if we, at the next transportation meeting, if we could have Terry have a presentation on this, and maybe even someone from the police department, possibly you, possibly, you know, a representative, just give the Transportation Commission some feedback and data as if we do fund this, how best to appropriate and where to locate these signs.
Yeah, I think that would be easy to do. We
Okay.
also, we have some recent information from the FHWA about accident data across the city. And I think to support what Chief Darris said, we see a lot of rear end accidents along Grand Avenue. In fact, it's the highest accident corridor across the city. And so I think that when we bring that back to the Transportation Commission, I can bring back some of those maps and start to explain that. And I do think that at some point we'll come in front of the council with that data, because I actually think it's really interesting and valuable.
Okay. And so now, Jonathan,
So
I
I'd-
would be tempted to make a motion.
I know, but I'd like to do public comment before we
Yeah,
do motions or comments for their
Mhm.
comments.
That's
I
perfect.
understand, but usually we do public comment and then we bring it back for
Mhm.
our comments
Yeah.
and then we make a motion for regular order. So is there anybody from the public, not that there might be, but is there anybody from the public that'd like to comment on this? Okay, okay, Ms. Chase. Don't be sorry.
Lori Chase, 705 Howden Drive. Signage and flashing signs and all these other things are very good, and they work very well together. The biggest thing is that most of these things are Band-Aids. People obey the speed limit because they want people to be safe. The majority. I know that's why I don't speed down Grand Avenue. And I get tailgated a lot, so I'm probably thinking they're going faster than 25. If they want to go around me, which they do, they get up really close and then they go around me. It's very aggressive driving. And what I've noticed when I'm coming home through commute traffic is a lot of people are on their phones looking down. And then when they go to accelerate, maybe the car in front of them just stopped. So yeah, maybe that's the reason why we're having a few problems with rear enders on Grand Avenue when it's really slow traffic. Just an observation on my part. It's purely anecdotal, and I could sit out there all day and prove it to everyone, but we need to work morally too.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, please.
I'm Bethany Ostrowski. I live at 815 Red Mountain
Beth,
Drive.
Beth, can you say that a little bit louder?
Bethany Ostrowski, 815 Red Mountain Drive. And when you just commented that the traffic was being addressed on Midland or the traffic calming, I'm just wondering what that is, where Midland crosses Red Mountain Drive and goes up past Yampa High School and then out to the Meadows, because I ride my bike every day and I can sit there and count the people speeding through those crosswalks. Some of them toot their horns at me as they're going by. I won't send my kids across that road without me there. So I'm commenting that if traffic is being addressed, the calming on Midland, we're missing out on a big section where a lot of families and kids live and go to school and cross. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless you want to, Chief, address that.
I'll just be very brief on that. So thank you. So more specifically on Midland, what I'm talking about is from 8th Street and south, where we have the signs that Terry is referring to, where she's talking about Yampa down past the Meadows and on down there. You see those speed limits change pretty frequently. And as a little word of caution, I'll give you a little public information here. Right down by where CDOT comes out, that main parking lot down there by the clinics, right before the road goes down underneath there, it drops down to 25. So we have an officer there very, very frequently, because that drops from 45 down to 25 in a pretty short area. So that area, we do have officers working that stretch of roadway. But again, please understand that I'm making no excuses or offering any idea or comment that people are not going to disobey the road laws in Glenwood Springs. That absolutely happens. And I'm certainly not suggesting for a second that Midland's immune to that. When I was just referring to those signs and I talked about addressing that, that's what I was talking about from 8th Street south.
Chief, just real quick question for you while you're up there. On Midland, now that Midland came up, we used to have those flashing signs that were like the cherries on the stop sign or on the the thing.
Yes.
Right, but they're not active. They've been active for 4 or 5 years, and I know that probably predates you. So maybe you or Terry could talk about why we don't do that anymore.
The red around the stop sign, the red lights.
No, they're on the speed limit. You're on the speeds.
It goes off.
It used to like flash a red and a blue.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Do I not speed on Midland?
You're not speeding.
Oh my gosh.
Revelation.
Hey, Jonathan, thank you.
If it goes too fast,
Does it
Yeah.
really?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
should.
I should say thank you.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
must be wrong, Terry. I'm sorry.
And I thought there was a work order in to fix them too. So, and I don't keep, that's, Matt usually handles those.
I mean, I'm
things,
pretty sure I
so
speed on Midland, so I would know. But I also don't.
I
look
am
up
not
on my
I'm not
phone.
100% sure, but that's my understanding is that there was a work order in to fix that sign.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Thank you, Terry.
Oh, sorry, sir.
Yeah, one more public comment.
So I'm Murray Reynolds, 1215 Blake, and Di is my better half. One of the things I kind of got excited about these flashing signs is it's kind of when you look at it, it's a pretty inexpensive way of controlling the speed. When I drive to Basalt every day, I've got a jewelry shop up there. There's one right by the Conservancy on River Road. And invariably, every day, you can just see the taillights start to, people put their taillights on, they go from 35 to 25, right through the Conservancy, and that's what the speed limit is. So maybe we move them to this, if Grand Avenue isn't the answer, maybe we move a couple of them to the side streets and see how we do there. It's a really inexpensive way to try to do it and see how we do. Thank you.
Thanks, Murray. All right, we'll bring it back to council for a motion or further comments. Go ahead. Ingrid.
Okay. Knowing that we have this 25,000 in traffic calming budget, I think that I would like to make a motion to allocate that funds to the discretion of the Transportation Commission to like identify and implement, work with Terry on installing one or potentially two based on their discretion about where they should go, but absolutely allow them to go ahead. I can see your.
No, I just have a question, a
Yeah.
clarification
Okay.
question
Yeah.
So are you saying this would be contingent upon Transportation Commission's approval?
Nope. They're going to have to pick some locations and or one location.
I see.
They're absolutely, we are green light going this, but ultimately they get to help decide where it gets put in.
Gotcha.
Can I
Okay.
ask a question about the motion?
Well, honestly, how long have we had that 25 grand in the transportation or in the traffic calming?
So we usually have an annual budget in there and it gets
Mhm.
moved around for different purposes.
Yeah.
I think 25,000, it's usually 50,000. I think Matt's used 25 of it already for some
Okay.
other purpose, but yes, I think, it can be used at your discretion or their discretion. And have we used it in the past? I think we have allocated money
Mhm.
to say that the Take a Minute campaign.
Totally.
There have also been other ideas of building medians and things like that. I think that that was part of what we put into our ideas for this year for the traffic calming budget. So
I'd like to use the 25,000
for
this purpose.
Sorry.
I'd like to use this 25,000 for this purpose.
Can I ask you a question? Ms.
Yeah.
Council person Wusso.
Mhm.
So you're saying, no, I have a question about the motion.
I think you have to second it before you can open
I'll
discussion.
second the motion.
Great.
Um, Thank you, Charlie. To follow up on what Jonathan's asking, the Transportation Commission would not have discretion or does have discretion?
They only have discretion about location.
But how about spending the money? Who decides?
Well, ultimately, I
Is
think
it
that
Terry or is it Imagine?
what I heard is that the one that accommodates 2 lanes could be up to 25,000.
Okay,
Or we could buy 2 that are single lane. So I think that's what I would like them to look into.
okay, great, thanks. Thank you.
Go ahead, Shelley.
I had a question. I guess I'm confused on the numbers. I thought that what I heard was 6,000 for 2.
So
On Grand
6,500 for 2, or just short of 13,000 for 4. All of those units would be only single lane detection. If we wanted to get double lane detection, so that we could see both lanes in both directions on State Highway 82, it would cost 25,000 for 2.
Okay,
That make
that
sense?
is not what I heard.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
There was a lot of numbers in there.
Okay, I'm mixed on this because I want to support it and I can see the value of
Mhm.
putting that on Grand. There is a lot of signage on Grand. But I also know that there are a lot of needs for traffic calming throughout the town and particularly we've talked about some other areas of town where it's needed. And we've talked about Blake Avenue, for instance. And so I'm mixed about spending so much just on these, just spending a whole year's budget or half the year's budget, what's left of it on these items. So I'll have to put some thought into that.
Charlie?
I fully support it, what you're trying to do and you and Sumner and Murray work really hard on this. We talked about Blake Avenue, said your front yard, we watch traffic go by and I'm real concerned. Oh, sorry. I always think I'm talking louder than I am. So I guess what I was saying is I really appreciate what you guys have been doing. I know we talked about even Blake Avenue. I sat in your front yard, we watched traffic a year or so ago. My concern with the motion, and I'm not going to support the motion, is that we are telling the Transportation Commission how to allocate $25,000 without having them have any input into this. It'd be like us going to the Financial Advisory Board and saying, we're going to allocate these funds. I think that we as a council have said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to send it back to them, ask them to make a recommendation to us. I hope that recommendation comes back. If they just come back and say absolutely no, then you certainly have a right to come back and say, hey, they said no, but we'd like you to do it anyway. That's a different issue. But I hope that they will look at spending at least some of this money and they can decide 2 lanes, 4 lanes, how many, and make that recommendation to us. That would be the way we have asked our boards and commissions to operate. And I don't think I can move out of that method in this particular instance. So I'm not going to support the motion.
Paula?
I think my feelings are similar to Charlie. I feel that it should go to the Transportation Committee and that they should have some discretion on what to allocate. I think that we could amend the motion, possibly Ingrid, to say that we would like them to come forward with some level of usage, but not to bind their hands and say you must use all 25,000 for this one device. At least give them some discretionary room.
Yeah, and ultimately, initially, when this was presented to me, I actually felt like having it be vetted by transportation was the right path. But I can also see that Di is very passionate about this and sees how significant these could be in the community. I feel like they are kind of a tool in the quiver for managing and traffic calming. And I think that because they have some mobility to them and they can be relocated, I think they could be used appropriately as different times that we need an area to have more oversight as far as speed. I absolutely want to hear feedback from the Transportation Commission on this, and I hear what you guys are saying, but I also feel like very easily I could have made a motion that just said, let's just do this. Let's just say this is important enough for a lot of people in our community. This is an action that we can accommodate. I'm guessing that Matt already spent 25,000 in his own way with traffic calming, which is probably already some, concrete barrier to slow down traffic or whatever. So half of the budget has already been used in that way. So I'm asking that the remainder be used in this way. And obviously I feel pretty passionate about it.
So I think, Marco, do you have anything? No, I'm good. I think, I'd echo, I think as it's problematic from a process standpoint, when citizens come before and ask us for money, and then we allocate money out that is budgeted, yes, and that's our right to do. But, if we don't want every nonprofit in the community going around financial advisory boards process, for example, we need to be very disciplined up here and send it back to the people we've empowered to make these decisions. And I think that is, while I agree, Ingrid, I think that the process of going through the Transportation Commission and empowering the boards and the people and the volunteers to spend so much time doing this is regular order. I think that, where Chief Darris doesn't not support it, I didn't hear a ringing endorsement that this is going to really move the needle. And so because I didn't hear strong staff support, because I didn't hear that it's gone through a regular process of our Transportation Commission, I'd like to hear that first from our staff and from our Transportation Commission before allocating that out myself. So yes, does anybody else have anything to say? Let's call the question, right? Isn't it better when we had the voice votes and you could?
May I make a new
I was gonna comment.
I would like,
So
yeah. Go
the
ahead.
reading is Counselor Willman, no. Counselor Russo, yes. Mayor Godus, no. Counselor Dem, no. Counselor Stepp, no. Counselor Kaup, no. Counselor Hershey, no.
Go ahead, Ingrid.
Okay, so I will make a motion, which is a little bit more of a traditional motion, and that is that we ask the Transportation Commission to look into this and give us a recommendation.
Second.
Councilwoman, would you?
If you may, Counselor Willman.
Second.
Would you take a friendly amendment that they report back to us by the second meeting in June, which would be after the Transportation Commission's regular meeting in June?
But that was just inherent in the motion, Charlie.
It was? Oh,
Yeah, that
I
was.
didn't understand their inherent nature, so
It
I
was totally in
apologize.
there. It was there. I promise you all.
Second.
Been moved by Counselor Russo, seconded by Counselor Hershey. Shelley.
Thanks, Ingrid, and I will support this motion. And again, Diane, I really thank you for bringing this forward, and I love the Take a Minute campaign, but I guess I'm mixed on this because I think Highway 82, Grand Avenue is Highway 82. And where's the state in helping us support traffic speeds along that highway? But I also look at 25,000 on a couple of instrumentation pieces on a very busy highway. I question how effective they'll be. Would it be better if we had more units on our smaller roads like Blake or Midland? And I guess along with that, I wonder also, when you look at the amount of 25,000, I know we're short on police officers, but what if we allocated time to have an officer park a
So
police
Shelley,
vehicle?
Is this related to the motion that's on the table?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Because it's just other ideas for how that money could be spent.
But the
So-
motion's referred to the Transportation
Yes.
Commission.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Thanks.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Ryan, let's call the question.
Brian, my thing's messed up because I hit the wrong button. Here. Wait.
Did he revote is what he wants to do?
No, wait. Okay, I got it. I got it. Sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman, yes. Counselor Wusso, yes. Mayor Gotis, no. Mayor, Counselor Dem, no. My apologies. Counselor Dem, yes. Counselor Step, yes. Counselor Wusso, yes. Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane.
Just so everybody's interested, my motion to deny
We
that was
appreciate your work, Don.
based solely on the time frame
you,
of
Mr.
requiring it
Ross.
be at the next meeting. That's the only reason. All right, next item, South Midland update. Next item.
Nope. I avoid that.
Am I allowed to share my screen? Oh, there we go. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Is it gonna be up there? Terry, forget. I was curious what you're putting up. Oh, it's gonna be there.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kathleen Vonatovich. I am your consultant for public information on the South Midland project. Keep South Midland moving. And that is one place where traffic is slowing down. But not for long. So I have just a couple images for tonight, and then I have an update on the project. This is a drone image of the new roundabout on 4 Mile in South Midland. It's completely paved and the side aprons are starting to take shape. Just an image here of some of our crews out there sculpting the rock wall work. I thought this was a kind of an artistic image I wanted to show you. Really great teamwork out there to get the sculpting work done. It's still ongoing. Just another picture of the corridor with the sidewalk and the new pavement and curb work and the rock wall sculpting work as well. Another picture of concrete sidewalk in the area. And you can tell this is a picture where you see some work is done and more work is needing to be done, like the landscaping. Just another cool drone image of the corridor. I want to take a minute to land on this slide here. On the left, you'll see our major work items associated with the project. And on the top, you'll see all the various areas of work throughout the corridor. So this is way more than a paving project. We have areas, if you zoom out a little bit and look at the work that's done on the roundabout, the drives, the intersection, 3 Mile Road, Cardiff Bridge Road, Hager Lane intersection, you can see that the project is all encompassing a complete reconstruction. Everything in green is 100% complete. Everything that is an NA means it doesn't related to that, that work isn't related in that area. So you can see we're really starting to fill the board here in terms of completion as we aim for completion in July. Work that's going on right now, key activities are the Shot Creek basing and sculpting, completing the driveway aprons, miscellaneous concrete throughout the corridor. Signage is beginning to, you'll see new signage out there in the following weeks. Topsoil irrigation landscaping. When we see this on the construction schedule, that's good news. We're headed toward the end of the tunnel. Light pole replacement work as well. Our traffic impacts will change a little bit when school is out on May 26th. We're going to be working Monday through Friday from 9 until 4 p.m. And then Saturdays should start to level off here soon. And then Memorial Day weekend, we'll have a shutdown on Friday and we'll resume work back on Tuesday. Can't say enough about the team, incredible team here. We meet weekly. We still have the live cell phone for text messaging. I don't know if any of you have gotten a text from us. Lots of people are still signing up to receive updates. We're going to have our very last CCC meeting, which is our community communications coalition, which is a group of about 10 people who volunteered to be our neighborhood communications team. And they have been with us for 18 months now. And we're going to have a little end of project get together with them in June, and then we'll have a ribbon cutting in July. So Good news is there are things like punch list items that are getting on the construction schedule, but we still have, work to do from now until July. Any questions?
So school ends Friday.
A week from Thursday,
Oh, okay.
right?
So then you'll be able to be on that day.
Yeah, we'll go till 4.
Okay. Thank you.
I just gotta say real quick, the rock work, the artistic stuff is awesome. It's really cool.
I
Have
know,
you
that's
seen
why
it?
I wanted to bring this picture. We have, I can email council a Dropbox we have some really cool images coming out of the project, so.
And I really appreciate, I don't know if it's you, Terry, or Gould, but the curb corrections out of the 2 entrances, my neighbors are very happy about that.
They're happy? Oh, that's great.
They're very happy. You didn't get any calls, did you?
I haven't got any calls.
Really? The community mailbox, there is actually a pull tab of call Ryan because we don't like these curbs. So they're very happy. Thank you.
Yeah, every time I give a presentation, I always like to say that the residents and the people that live in this area are the people that we really want to thank.
You're welcome.
This is a highly impactful project. And we are nearing the end, and these people that live in this area are done. So you should all be really proud of yourself because it's an incredible project is starting to come together and take shape at the end here.
Thank you very much, Kathleen.
I also want to mention that you have done such a great job of communicating with the community and making sure that, that we know what's happening and just being so accessible. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been fun. Really, it's only as good as the construction team though. I mean, we have a great construction team, owners rep, SGM, Gold, all the subs are mostly local. I mean, that's what's so cool about it. All right, well, stay tuned for a
Thank
ribbon
you.
cutting invitation.
Thank you very much,
All
Kathleen.
right.
Nice to see you in person.
Yes.
Can you please fix that trail near your house as quick so you can buy it?
Yeah, there's been a lot of warranty work on that sidewalk. It's close.
Yeah.
Looks close anyway. All right. Thank you very much. Next one. Thank you, everybody, for being patient. I know a lot of you are here for this item and we're a little behind, but next item is the Affordable Housing Ad Hoc Committee Report to City Council.
Mr. Stapleton.
I think, come on up and I'll just do a real quick recap off the top of my head. Council asked us to put together this ad hoc committee to look at affordable housing, potential ways to fund. I would like to just thank the committee and Clark for his leadership throughout it. It is one of the committees that I am most proud of in my time here. And with that, I'll let Clark take it away.
And pull up, getting queued into the Zoom here. Oh, that's my wife surfing. Stop share. Let's try again. Yeah, that's there. Screen share. That's the one I want. There. There we go. Great. Well, good to see you guys again. Yes.
Could you introduce yourself just for the public?
Yeah, my name's Clark Anderson. Good to be before all of you and the public. And very honored to be able to tonight speak on behalf of the group that spoke with you guys at a recent work session. We're coming back, as we talked about at that work session, just to provide the formal follow-up and talk about next steps. Unfortunately, in the interest of everybody's time, we won't be able to do our presentation as a group tonight like we did previously, but I would like to ask those who are able to attend from the committee to stand up and just show yourself. Thank you. Oh, and I know, yeah, I know there's some on.
Yeah,
on the
Alyssa, if
line.
there's anybody from the public that maybe can raise their hands, if they want to be allowed in as a panelist.
See, Eric is
So-
on there and Ellen is on there as well. And Jorge. So great. Thanks, Charlie. As Deborah mentioned, this committee was formed after the dialogue you all had last October, exploring the question of funding for affordable housing. And the purpose was to engage a group of citizens to look at that question. What would we do with funding and where could it come from? And so that's how we spent our time. But we wanted to take an approach that allowed us to hear from different voices and bring in different types of expertise from the community. So we did that. We formed a group that really tried to pull in business interests, civic and nonprofit leadership, different voices from within the community, and use that diversity of expertise and perspective to inform our approach. And doing that meant that we all had to learn something, because not everybody was an expert in housing. And so we learned together and went through a series of conversations to be able to better learn about this topic and what communities can do about it. And what we're going to do tonight is share an abbreviated version of the content that we shared with you guys at the work session, in part to reiterate some of those points, but also to offer the public the benefit of understanding some of the specifics of what we found. This is just a list of the participants, and it was a phenomenal group. People worked really well together and worked hard. They dedicated a lot of hours coming up with what I think is a really good framework to move forward. I think it's useful to begin with why this matters. Glenwood Springs is a community that I think a lot of us love because it's a real place. I know when I first moved here, that was actually my favorite part about the community, is it was still a place that felt authentic, where in the neighborhood I lived in, you had a lot of different types of people, all within the same neighborhood. This was downtown, and you really felt that throughout the community, that you had a mix of kind of blue collar and white collar, and different cultural and racial and ethnic backgrounds and different incomes. And that really creates a sense of place. And we all know that another thing that real communities need, people need places to live. It also matters because our community is struggling with this issue right now economically. There are very few factors that are having a more significant impact on local businesses. And I say this as somebody who runs an organization. We're really struggling with this issue. There's very few factors that are more difficult in this issue right now. The affordability of housing is truly impacting our ability to hire and attract talent, not just us, but us as a community. And we're also losing people. When communities are places where young people don't feel like they can come back to, or old people don't feel like they can age in place, I think you're supposed to say seniors, something is lost there. And we know how this story goes. We can look around to other communities and see where it goes, right? I grew up in one, growing up over in the Vail Valley. And that's not a place I would ever want to be again, because of the loss of authenticity of that place, because it's no longer affordable to anybody. And so those things matter a lot for keeping our community as a real place, and keeping our economy as one that can continue to function. It's important to note that not acting is likely to continue to make the matter worse. And every year that we don't take action, this problem is going to get worse and more expensive. So we do need to act. So just briefly, it's useful to frame up some of the ideas here. What is affordability? Just as a reminder, we measure affordability as a ratio between income levels and housing costs, right? Because what's affordable in one town can be unaffordable in another, depending on how much the people in that area make. And that the benchmark we use for that is area median income. So within a given housing market or given community, we use that as the benchmark. And when what we consider affordable is a home or a household spending 30% or less of their income on housing. And that leaves sufficient funds for other things like education and food and savings and all of that. Those that are spending more are considered cost burdened. And in Glenwood Springs, about 26% of homeowners and almost 50% of renters are considered cost burdened. And an analysis in 2017 found that the overspending happening from cost burdened families equates to about $10 million in money that's not being spent in the community, right? So that's probably not a dollar for dollar amount, but it's intended to give us a sense of the loss to our economy is not just in the difficulty of hiring and retaining talent and losing businesses that realize that's not going to work for them. It's also that the people in our community can't spend money as well here. So when with that in mind, what is affordable in Glenwood Springs? So using that benchmark, 100% of the area median income in Glenwood, this is from 2021 numbers because the 2022 numbers have been slow to come out. It's about $70,000 for a 2-person household. So, you know, what can a family of 4 or 88 for a 4-person household? You know, so you look at what a family of 4 could afford, looking about $300,000 for ownership and about 220. I'm sorry, not 220, 2,200 per month for rent. We all know, I don't need to flash the next parts of this to know that that's really hard to do, especially on the ownership side. So when we think about, you know, who's struggling with this, what's fascinating is it's a broad spectrum of the community. It's normal in even a balanced market to have people at the very low income levels not be able to afford to live in a community. But when a market is out of balance, what happens is more and more of the population, more and more of the income spectrum can't afford to live there. And that's what we're seeing here. And it means it's the challenge is important, you know, regardless of who's impacted, but the ripple effects throughout the community become more and more profound the more and more people are impacted. And that's what we're seeing now. So as we move forward, it's just, we wanted to make sure you all bring you back to your own strategic priorities and remind everyone that this is a priority within your own strategic plan, both as a topic, affordable housing, but also actually creating funding. So just reminding of that. So the group worked through these issues and started having a conversation around, okay, well, what do we actually want to see out of this? If we're successful with a program that would create funding to expand workforce and affordable housing in our community, what would the results be? And I know you all have seen this, but again, I think it's valuable context for the public to share. One of the things that really popped out was the importance of having a really healthy and resilient workforce here, and that is critical for our community and stability as a community and stability as an economy. Obviously, that relates to having healthy local businesses, and local businesses are so essential to the makeup of our community. Families are also fundamentally the fabric of any community. And so offering stability, especially for families that are struggling to make it here. And we know, again, that's impacting more and more families just struggling to make it. And you see more and more families that would like to be here and have a hard time putting down roots. And we want to be able to provide greater levels of opportunity and stability for those folks. We also want to make sure that the system that we're creating is more equitable and provides more opportunities for more people. We want to make sure that both, seniors and youth have an opportunity here. One of the community members sort of coined the term, we want a multi-generational community, a place where youth can come back to and thrive, and also where people can age in place if they want to. We recognize that doing this meant providing really a range of different housing types and housing options across a range of different income levels for the people that are in need, and that we wanted to see something that created a long-term benefit, long-term assets. So think about this with the long-term in mind. And finally, that moving forward on this was important that we have a significant level of funding to be able to have a meaningful impact. So the role of local funding, where does local funding play into local housing strategies? Just take a minute to kind of walk through some of this. I think it's useful to think about this in the context of a broader sort of housing strategy. And if you break it down in pretty simple terms, there's sort of a couple different elements to what most or what communities can do. Probably the easiest thing you can do is make it so your local codes and your plans send the right signal to the private sector so that it's possible for the private sector to help you build a more balanced market where there's different types of housing and kind of a consistent production of housing, and that they're happening in good locations. And that stuff you do with your codes and your plans. And you guys, you saw in your packet, there was an update on things you guys have been doing there. You've been taking some of those steps already, but that's an important piece. The next thing you can do is incentivize affordability by, really trying to take steps that stimulate the private sector to do things. You have some of these pieces in place now in terms of being able to reduce some of the fees, for example, so the fee waiver program you have. And then there's an incentive in place where then the landlord, if they decide to participate in that, has a fee reduction, but they have to maintain an affordable rental. So that's one example of that. The next level is what I like to think of as sort of community-led affordability. And this is where communities actually engage in more direct partnerships to create and preserve affordability within their community. And this is a wide range of strategies that you can use to help buy down the cost of affordable housing in your community, and often help create sort of secondary markets within the community that makes it easier for people to compete and find a place to live. And finally, you can require affordability through inclusionary policies that say for whatever amount of housing is built through a project, you have to provide affordability. And you guys are doing some of these that already fit within our market context. You're really covering the right and left side of the spectrum. And what we're talking about today is the stuff in the middle. So when we think about the role specifically, one of the most important things that local funding does is it helps you fill the gap between what the market's going to produce and what people can afford. And as I showed you guys a couple times now, actually, there's, when you think about the cost to develop housing, and the built into that is cost of land, cost of going through the process, all of those things, the development community needs to then charge enough money to pay all those things off and make a profit. And in a market like we have, where it's very expensive to build, that leads to a cost of either rental or ownership that is going to exceed a lot of what the community makes. So filling that gap is a really big piece of it. Also, local funding is really powerful in the sense that it makes it possible to leverage other resources, whether it's state or federal resources, of which there are a lot of programs out there, or leveraging the engagement and partnership of the private sector. And that's a really huge piece, because public-private partnerships are a huge component of local housing strategies, and having local funding to be able to work with the private sector and leverage their expertise and resources is really important. It's a very flexible tool, and you can use it for a lot of different types of strategies. We'll show that in just a moment. And it's something that can create long-term community assets and benefit when used correctly. These are investments that don't leave the community when the people do. You create a long-term, more stable market, and that's a really important piece. Finally, it gives you the ability to take action. And we know this works. We can look at the places like Summit County, who's had a funding program for quite a long time now, and we've seen them re-up that multiple times to take it back to the voters. And we've seen the amount of really great projects and programs that they put in place with it. And it's a really good model for us to look at. And they're not the only ones. I won't take you guys through this. I decided to not pull you all the way back through the financial model. We talked to you as well about, what can uses of funding be? And we began with the idea, before we even looked into the potential uses, that what's needed is a very flexible tool, something that can help do all the things I just talked about: funding gaps, leverage, and create long-term benefits. We broke it into a couple different categories. One of those is property acquisition. So this is things like land banking, but can also include acquisition of specific properties for rehabs. Even there's as you guys have seen in the news, a lot of places where mobile home parks are being purchased by their community, and that's something that you can participate in. So there's a whole suite of strategies under property acquisition that we looked at. Public-private partnerships. So this really involves any type of partnership where the city could participate through either direct investment, infrastructure assistance, different ways of helping to fill that financial gap in getting a project built so that the end product provides greater levels of affordability than otherwise would be possible. Down payment assistance is another one that we looked at, and finding ways to help homeowners be able to get into homes. And this is something that heard from just in the last couple of days, some business owners who really felt like that was a really critical piece that they were interested in understanding and thought would be really a powerful thing, because they talked about how for their employees, it's that little bit of funding to be able to get into a home, and creating a revolving loan fund that can be used. And so you're getting the money back. It continues to move through the community is a very powerful tool. And you can connect that with strategies that make it so that you can create an incentive so that when people use that, they also have the opportunity to deed restrict that home. And then you're also creating a long-term asset. So just keep moving through this in the interest of time. Also, there's a suite of different types of incentives that can be created, whether that's helping sort of smaller mom and pop folks, create an accessory dwelling unit in their backyard, or direct investments in buy down programs. So we're seeing a lot of these take place now, where you're basically financially incentivizing people deed restricting either for resident occupancy or price appreciation their home. And that's being applied across a lot of different contexts. So there's a lot of different things we can look at there. And finally, you need the capacity to actually be able to run. So these are kind of the key uses, simplified for the purposes of presentation, that we identified. And we offered, this table, which I won't go into now, to just provide a comparison and help understand the strategic intent of all these different things, and kind of get a general sense of an idealistic level of funding. So when we do that, just moving quickly through this, a lot of stuff is possible. You can do land banking, you can preserve existing affordable housing, you could seed a community land trust, public-private partnerships, all the things we just talked through. So a lot of different things are possible within what we just covered. So the next thing we did is we looked at different sources of funding. Doing this obviously requires figuring that out. And we really focused in on 3 different types. Sales tax. I'm just going to move through these quickly because you guys have seen this. Attractions or admissions tax, and lodging tax. What we wanted to do is provide comparisons between these and help explain the sort of pros and cons of each. Our approach and understanding of what you guys wanted was to provide a menu and bring that back so that you guys could kind of pick and choose. We'll come back to that. So that's what we left you guys with, is sort of, here's your choices. Here's the pros and cons. And, I think ultimately the group really leaned towards attractions and admissions or lodging. We didn't make a selection, but there was a significant portion of the group that did have real challenges with the regressive nature of a sales tax for this particular use. Just in the interest of sort of showing that we were doing our homework, we did try to compare Glenwood Springs to other communities in terms of the level of taxation across different parts of the tax structure. And rather than go into that in detail, just showing that, there's some room. We're not at the very bottom, but compared to peer communities, we're close to the bottom half. I won't go into these in detail, but in the interest of addressing questions about how does something like this move forward in ways that address concerns about, let's make sure these funds aren't used inappropriately. Let's make sure we're helping the right people and we address eligibility requirements. Let's make sure we consider, all of the different questions. We identified several kind of principles for program design and implementation. Again, these are in your packet. I won't go into them right now, but the intention here was to really support an effective, accountable program to move forward with. So where are we now? Just a quick summary of kind of what we got to and what we've provided you guys and talked about at the work session. It's very clear that we have an important challenge and that there's broad interest in our community in solutions. We have a really diverse group of civic, business, and nonprofit leaders ready to move this thing forward. We have a solid framework, an assessment of uses of funding, of sources, and some really good ideas in terms of the direction of this. Those things are all in place. We have a good framework there and got good momentum. You know, like you sum all this up, there's some invested folks, momentum, and a framework to move from. So what do we need? We still have to figure out, and originally we really wanted to position you guys to take this one on, but I know it's a hard decision. The sources and level of funding, you know, where's this going to come from? It's always a political dynamic that's meaningful when you're going to come to the community and say, we want to put a question on the ballot to raise taxes to do something. It's a valuable, you know, where is the money going to come from? We think it's important to maintain a community-driven approach. This has worked pretty well. I think the community group that we worked with was awesome. And they are, for the most, I mean, I think almost everybody's very committed to continuing to move forward and wants to put more effort into this. At the same time, you know, I think it's important to maintain ongoing coordination with the city staff on some of the technical questions we have. I don't think a community group should be doing the sort of legal research on what exactly is taxed in an attractions tax or questions like that. That's just, you know, have Watkins do that. You know, we think that coordination, even with a community-driven approach, that type of coordination is going to be really valuable. Relatedly, you know, for this to move forward successfully, it needs your all support, it needs your leadership, and it needs your engagement. And I think that's probably the most important thing for this to move forward. You know, you guys have to feel a sense of leadership and engagement, even if you're not grabbing the ball and running with it, and a citizens group is, for the now, we do need your leadership on it. And so I think if we took that approach within the next 6 to 8 weeks, a group could come back on a specific ballot question. So summing that up, you know, here's at least my understanding of what I think could probably work well moving forward, taking what the group's thinking is and some of the feedback we got from the work session during and after. We said this then, and I'll say it again. We believe as a group, we all agreed we need to take action. We think local funding is an important tool as a part of a broader housing strategy, and we think we should move forward, hopefully this November, with putting a question on the ballot. To get there, we think there's a step of expanded committee work that would focus particularly on sources and levels of funding, but probably addressing a couple other questions that are sure to emerge. And so we will take those in and address them as they come forward. We would bring that back to you all and move forward from there. As I mentioned, we think it's important to maintain engagement throughout. So I think some updates would be important. And you know, that whatever that ongoing engagement looks like. And I just want to reiterate that, you know, I think as a group, I can, you know, speaking on behalf of the whole group, we strongly believe this needs to move forward. We strongly believe that the longer we wait, the worse it's going to get and the harder it's going to be to tackle this. So I'll stop there. And I don't know if anybody from the group wants to add, or if you want to open up to comments or questions.
Mr. Mayor, is this we had a full work session on this. Is this appropriate for public comment? Sorry.
I think there's members of public here that'd like to comment, so I would say yes. I guess I'd first like to see if anybody from council has any questions of Clark.
I have a
but
question,
before-
Mr. Mayor.
Just real quick, I just want to thank you, Clark, for leading this group. Thank you, Deborah, for helping put together this group with Clark. Again, thank you, everybody that participated on it, but this is just fantastic work. So thank you from all of us. Go
Clark,
ahead.
I have a difficult question for you. I appreciate all the hard work you did, but how can you think that it's politically viable with what's gone on in the last few months, in the last 2 years, to put any tax question on before maybe, and I'm just saying maybe November 2024, presidential year. I mean, how can you possibly think you can succeed? Because I'm telling you, you're going to fail.
Yeah, I thought your comments about that at the work session were really well stated.
Thank you.
And I appreciate too that you said then, and I'll assume you believe this now, that like you agree this is an important issue.
Absolutely.
And you think it's important to do something. You know, the art of politics is challenging. You guys know that really well. I think two things. One, that's a valuable thing that the group that moves forward should take some time to assess and could probably use some resources for, is to some level of engaging the community a bit to get a sense of the political feasibility of this. I don't think it's ever going to be an easy ask, although I think with the right coalition and the right partnership behind it, I actually think anything's possible. I think this is an issue that if you poll the community in general and say, is this a topic that matters, you would get resounding level of support. But to your question of would it fail or not, I don't know. I mean, I'm not as confident as you that it would. I'm also not confident. I'm not going to sit up here and say guaranteed this would pass. And that's why I think, you know, some additional work is needed. And I think it also really depends on the source that's decided. If it's a source that the community feels like that's fair and it works and they see the direct impact of the investment that would come out of it, I think it's possible. Go ahead. I know.
So just one final follow-up question. Don't you think you could be much more successful, your group, if not unlike the anti-demos group, you did a grassroots campaign and came back? I know you don't want to get into the weeds on like the percentages of tax, but to come back with a petition to force it onto the ballot. So you have a grassroots movement, you have 1,000 signatures, that's 1,000 votes. Now we're talking. And you could get that passed. That's what I
think, okay, so that's a really good point. And in a way, it would be great to not have to go through a petition process. But in a way, I think that's partly what we're saying is to make this a more grassroots approach to kind of, it's been very citizen driven. I mean, we had, you know, the support of having you guys sort of give us the charge, but after that, it's been, you know, community work and community volunteers and a lot of those types of community hours. And I think we are excited to see that committee expand. I know there's people that are interested in participating. So it's a valid idea. And I think what I would hate to lose is your engagement in it. And, you know, but I think your point is really well taken, and this should move forward as a sort of the idea, you know, the term grassroots resonates, and I think it would resonate with this group.
Thank you, Clark.
Yeah.
Clark, just real quick, you said, you know, to that, how, you know, you said something about asking the community if now is the right time, if the community's ready now. How do we go about engaging the community in to give you guys the information that would help you make some decisions on level of funding and the timeline?
Well, you know, I think there could be a survey tool. I mean, honestly, like the process of, I need to talk to the group about it, to be honest. But I think, because I want to be clear, I'm not the leader of this group. I'll just help facilitate. I think the process of going around and getting petitions, we'd learn a lot from that. Again, I don't actually feel like that's something we'd love to do, but maybe that's something we put on the table. I think having some resources to be able to invest in quantitative assessment would be helpful. So I think, you know, I think there's probably some value in continuing. Look, I think a grassroots approach with support from the city, given the connection to the city in this is probably the best way forward. And I think if there were some resources that were available to do that, that would be helpful. Probably also, you know, we've had translation throughout this. I think it would be really great to be able to sustain the diversity of our group, and having that opportunity would be wonderful. There's a tremendous level of expertise that allows us to have, an insight that we wouldn't otherwise have. So that's a consideration. Charlotte.
Yeah, I guess, and I agree a lot with what Councilman Hershey has said, that we need to make sure there's a lot of community support for this. Thank you, Tony. That we make sure there's a lot of community support for this. I think a little bit difference in a petition to affirm or deny a particular action is one thing, but in this case, there's, as you've identified quickly, there's at least two primary funding sources that the committee looked at. And I think we need to explore how those would work. And that's kind of hard to do in a petition process. And so kind of found up with what the mayor said, if you had a survey that the city helped fund, we get qualified people to do it and write questions. Do you think that would help the committee in moving forward to say, what does the community think is a good way to fund? One, do we think affordable housing is an issue? Is it that we need to fund, we need to get affordable workforce housing, whatever we're going to call it? Two, how do we fund it? Do we try to tax it this way, that way, in any number of ways? Would that help you in this group and in expanded capacity, then go forward with a campaign if we determine to put it on the ballot?
As a person who knows very little about actually getting things across the finish line, because I'm not a politician, I think it would be very useful. So I would qualify my statement by saying it seems like that would be really good information for us to have to build a campaign around, and to really, look, if the results of that come back and it's really, really bad, we need to know that, because what we don't want to do, and this actually goes back to Councilman Hershey's comments previously, like we don't want to try and fail, because coming back is going to be really hard. I mean, that really resonated with me. And I think the group would rather get it right one time than have to fail and come back in 3 years, 4 years. I mean, it takes a long time.
And then Ingrid. Oh, sorry, Ingrid, were you first?
No, she was
Okay.
first.
Go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
Clark, in speaking of surveying, polling, whatever we call it, because you guys have invested so much time in this background, would the committee, along with the increasing the size of the committee and doing that work, which I realize takes time, would you also participate with city staff on determining those questions in the poll to see what kind of information you need to really come back with? Because I think you guys have the answers, and I really support everything that you guys have done, but I think you also would be able to help city staff or the pollster or whoever we would designate to figure out the right questions to ask.
I mean, my experience with that is that the pollsters are pretty good at designing the questions. I think our committee would be more than happy to engage with them on that if the resources were there. And, that would be, I think, exactly the way we would do it. And I think there's also people that are smarter than me in terms of how to think about that would come into, that are, I think, going to be able to help us from the community, that I think we could lean on.
Okay, thanks.
Councilman Russo.
Once again, I'm just a huge gratitude for everyone in the group who was willing to do this. Your time and expertise is so invaluable. How long do you think, if you were to expand the size of this group and get a few other voices at the table, how long do you think you would need in order to come back to us again?
Well, there's going to need to be some education again. I think we need to bring some members up to speed. I also think there needs to be some engagement among some of us, or some education for some of us on, like, how do these things work?
Yeah.
I've been through one of these campaigns before, but it was a long time ago and we lost. So it'd be nice to get some education on that. And it wasn't even housing. I'm dancing around your question. I put in 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we get it back to you guys in time to design the questions. And also, once the question is designed and formally
make your ask,
make a move to put it on the ballot, that there's time for a campaign to move this forward and have a really successful campaign. And so I do think in the interim too, in that 6 to 8 week time frame, it's going to be important to sort of be building a coalition. We've got the starting point of that, but I think it's about building that out. And I think that'll be a part of what ultimately happens here.
And if you had 6 to 8 weeks, would that also allow you enough time to maybe do some community opportunities at like the community center or something like that? Would that would have that time to organize? Okay.
Yeah, and we originally wanted to do that as part of our approach and realized that it made sense to relook at that question after this point.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a very, yeah, that really, at least for me, that resonates, just to give the community those opportunities to come and learn and understand and offer their comments.
Yeah, because ultimately at every juncture, other than the initial one where we said, gosh, affordable housing keeps coming up, we need a group to give us feedback. It feels as though this has been very much led and driven by this ad hoc committee. And you know, from your presentation, my confidence in you is very high that you'll be able to come back. So I would want to make sure that 8 weeks is plenty of time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would kind of turn it back to staff and be like, hey, when do we need to have it back? When's the due date?
I'll let you answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, you know, if we just call, because round numbers, and I'm happier with that. If we call that the 1st of June, because that's essentially where we're at. You know, 8 weeks puts us pretty close to the 1st of August. If you take that full 8 weeks. And if there were a decision, whether frankly via petition or via council decision, to get it on the November ballot, we're really looking at the first week in September that has to happen.
Okay.
So, you know, it can't be longer than that. And the twitchy attorney in me who has to make sure that there's some cushion would feel like, you know, sooner is always better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shelley, then Marco.
Sorry.
Deborah, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, if it's the direction council wants to go, I would keep staff involved in this to help, because I do not believe Clark is signing up to be a facilitator again. And you would, I mean, we couldn't lose the month it will take us to wrap our heads around it to get it moving again.
Yes, some support from staff would be helpful. I think it can be community driven while also have the engagement of the city. I think that's a good approach. And yeah, I mean, I'll need to be pretty thoughtful with my ability. I'm hoping to have a slightly different role where I'll be a very involved participant, but probably not the one writing up all the notes and doing it. So I'll have a role, but we'll, I think, gain some benefit from other people stepping in there too.
Okay. Thanks, Deborah. I appreciate that. And I think it will help maybe the group or the expanded group move forward. But my question for you is kind of similar along the vein that Ingrid was on. I somewhat agree with Tony that I'm not interested in this being council-led and put on a ballot without either a petition or without extended community feedback. So I'm wondering what would be your plan, and as the group, and thank you to everyone who's participated in this, but how do you take this to the community and really get the feedback and be able to bring it back to council to show us that this is something that the community wants? Because the messages are very mixed right now. And I agree with you. It's difficult to conceive of, I'd have a hard time moving forward, putting something on the ballot that is not going to be successful. So we need to hear from the community. How best do you propose to take this message, this important message that is put together here from the group? How do you take that to the community and then get that feedback? Whether you think a survey is best or outreach to different areas?
I think it could be a couple different things. It's probably reasonable and would be the best approach to try to do a little bit of both. I also think that we should be cautious. I don't want to over promise and say we'll do like a community process here. You know, I mean, I do that for a living, and it takes time and effort, and I only do that if you can do it well. And I think when you shift to a truly grassroots effort, that stuff's hard to do, you know. Organizing, facilitating a legitimate, community engagement workshop or something like that. So I just think I want to set that out there. Okay. That doesn't mean we can't. I think there's some forums we could create. There's ways to do that. I also think a survey would be a very useful tool. I mean, let's just, that's what people use when they're getting ready to put questions on the ballot or run for Congress or whatever, you get that information, and that's helpful. I think also when the time comes, we can pack this room. We could have packed it tonight.
Okay.
We didn't even try.
So
you know?
that's the
So
question I would put out
we can make you guys, and that doesn't, I think it's important. And even with petition, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
You know, that doesn't necessarily equate to a win at the polls. At the end of the day, like, people got to vote and make their choice heard, but I understand what you guys are asking for. And I think we can respond to that as best we can. I also think a diverse coalition of partners that are after this can
Right.
help. I want to let some of the people on the committee speak to that, because I actually think hearing from the group will be much more powerful than hearing my ideas. And the final thing I want to
Great.
say on this is,
Thanks.
I think we all ought to be careful. And I think Tony made this point when we did the work session, that we ought not overly conflate decisions like the Donegan decision, or in general, concerns about the way our community is growing, with the sense that our community is overtly against being a place where people can afford to live, and that this is a place where people simply do not want to see more housing that is affordable get built. I really don't believe that. I think there are people in this community that hope it never changes at all from the way it was 15 years ago. But I don't think that's normal. That's not going to happen. And I don't think that's broadly what the community feels. And I think there are solutions we can do here that really work with the character and feel of this place, and aren't going to feel like, you know, a bunch of, I just want to be careful not to conflate that, because what I hear when I look at the surveys and when I look at what the community talks about, and you look at the Facebook forums, when I hear what you know, people talk about, I don't think there's any issue that people care about more than this. I really don't.
Thanks.
Councilor Dem.
Clark, thank you. Ad hoc, fantastic job again. I heard you last week. It was awesome. Your positivity just resonates. It's I love it. This is for staff probably more than you. I heard community outreach all across the dais here. That costs money. How much out of experience would you think something like this will cost? And is the money available for something like this?
I'm trying to think. I think the last study, if Steve is back there, was that about 30,000, 35,000?
It was about 30.
I think if that is, thank you. If that is something council can do, we could dip into my discretionary. to do that.
Discretionary fund. And the 35,000, and you know, maybe too, is that going to encompass, and is that a full comprehensive what we're looking for here?
I don't know.
We don't know till we get there.
Yeah, there are definitely people that are smarter than me to do that.
Right.
And we can talk to them and get them involved and answer those questions. And look, if we can do it more affordably and feel good about it, great. And if not, and that's what it takes,
We'll
then
spend a little more.
You know, again, I'm glad that you asked that question.
And do we have a little more than 35 if we had to? Could we go to 50?
I believe we have a little more. And if it is, I believe it is one of your top priorities, and therefore I would feel very comfortable like saying, we'll find the money, right? If
Okay.
you guys want us to do this, we'll find the
Excellent.
money.
Again, positivity. I love it. Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Mr. Dane took my question, so I don't have any questions, but.
Then can we open up to public comment before?
Sure, yeah.
Great. Okay, I guess we have somebody from the public that we'll now open it to public comment.
My guys up.
Sure. I just need everybody's name and you don't get 9 minutes.
Yeah.
You can either have 3 minutes apiece.
I'm pretty brief. I'll let these guys talk, and thank you guys. I'm sorry for jumping ahead. These guys work.
Sorry, name and
Matt
address.
Spidell, 2504 Woodbury Drive. I own a business at 1331 Grand Avenue. I like to think I'm a respected business person, and we do a lot for the community. I don't hear too many things otherwise. These guys, I live in Glenwood. I'm fortunate. I'm lucky. I'm here not because of myself. I'm here because of others. These guys are both key guys to me. They can tell you if I'm a good paying boss or not. They can also represent everyone that works under them. I'm just deeply concerned that, first of all, I want to support that we continue funding for this process. We need to get more people involved. I heard from Ken Murphy.
I've heard from other people in the community. They want to get involved and they want to help with solutions. So I want to continue that process, because you're right. If we don't have a full support of the community, it's kind of dead in the water, right? I will personally go door to door and help sell this because I care that much. But I am deeply concerned that I may not be able to have a business. I'm selling 4 stores in Grand Junction and Fruita, and I'm doing good, but I don't know if I can keep going without any employees in Glenwood. I subsidize 3 guys that live in Glenwood right now. I give them $1,000 a month, and they want to move back to Newcastle because they can get a 3-bedroom place and a yard, and they can get a place and they can't get anything here. They know they can't buy here. So that's my Glenwood work staff right there. And I can't keep anyone in Glenwood. So I'm constantly debating, like, I'm a successful company and I'm struggling this much. What are the guys that are just getting into the business? How are they doing it? And a lot of them aren't. But I'm gonna let Andrew, he's in Newcastle. Jake, both of these are my key guys. Andrew, if you want to talk first, tell them where you live and what your thought process is with where we're at.
Yeah, hi, my name is Andrew Tucker. I manage the mat shop down here in Glenwood. A couple of years ago, I was looking for my own housing. I lived here in Glenwood. My girlfriend and I, we obviously can like make it happen. I think it's a really consistent thing for a lot of landlords to keep jacking up prices. And one person I gotta give a shout out to is Clark, because we were looking at one of his places and he's kept it at a reasonable rate. I think what is gonna happen is we need to all show leadership together, get the community more involved, and really like put some funding towards that. Because I mean, I see it every day. I'm working my butt off to, try to get people in so we can keep the shop open and I can keep my livelihood going. And a couple of years ago when I had to move out of town, it was kind of heartbreaking because I really love it here and I would have loved to stay here. And I'd love to come back here. At the moment, Matt takes care of me. He's amazing, but it's just not possible with the way things are going at the moment. So we need to take action and now, and I wish it was 2 years ago this was happening, but here we are. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
My name is Jacob Tarver. I've been out here for about 20 years now, and every single year I see rent go up. Not just in Glenwood, but we're here in Glenwood, so we're talking about Glenwood. My mother-in-law, she's got a super solid job at City Market. She cannot afford a single place. We've been looking for the last 3 months for a place for her, just her alone to stay at in Glenwood. And like, she's living in her car right now because she has a good job. She's making good money. She's got great benefits, but it's not affordable here. And you guys are doing an amazing work. Didn't even know this whole committee was a thing until about a week ago. Want to get more involved with that too, but I mean, it's outrageously expensive to live in Glenwood. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jake. And thank your mother-in-law. Carolyn.
Hi, I broke your mic. I actually work better now. Carolyn Meadowcroft. I live at 659 Dolores Circle in Glenwood. I'm employed by Habitat for Humanity, so obviously you know where I stand on affordable housing. Couple of things that I wanted to mention. The HUD area median income guidelines did come out a few days ago, and we did see a slight increase throughout the state. Our area median income now 100% for a family of 4 has gone up almost $6,000 a year, which now is up at 94.2. So that's great. However, we know that with increases of property taxes, homeowners insurance because of fires and things we deal with in Colorado, and rising interest rates, that gets eaten up pretty quickly. So, frankly, people are not any better off, even though those guidelines show income has increased. Another thing I wanted to mention is if you have a chance, I listened to a webinar last night from Colorado Sun that was sponsored by them and had several speakers on affordable housing.
So just go out there, Google it, you can link it. It was a YouTube video and it was very interesting. A couple of takeaways that I had from that was one of the things that one of the speakers said was that affordable housing is one of the biggest challenges of our generation and of the younger generation, frankly, because they're the ones mostly impacted. Another takeaway, and you've probably heard this about other things, but it said, if not now, when? If not us, who? So I just want you to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Good evening. My name is Hilda Solano. I'm a member of St. Stephen's Catholic Church and also a member of Mountain Voices Project, MVP. And I'm here with some of my colleagues from MVP, this time representing MVP. And MVP is a broad-based organization representing religious, educational, and civic institutions along the valley. And a number of them are here in Glenwood. And we're here to express our support for you guys, listening to the recommendations of the ad hoc committee. And as members of MVP, we also want to prioritize the specific sources and uses of funding.
Hi, good evening. My name is Heather Exby. I'm the campus leader, vice president of the Spring Valley and Glenwood Springs campuses of Colorado Mountain College. I too am a leader in Mountain Voices Project. We as a group have discussed affordable housing at length and want to ask you to consider the recommendations from the ad hoc committee seriously. We ask you address 3 specific elements. Prioritize the lodging and attractions tax rather than a sales tax as a way to raise funding. Though sales taxes have an important role, they are felt more heavily by lower income residents. We believe we can increase the lodging and tax and implement an appropriate attractions tax and remain competitive as a destination. Use those funds primarily in the following 3 ways. Preservation of affordable housing. Mobile home parks may be the truly last affordable option for many, especially immigrant residents. And they are being bought up quickly by speculators and increasing rents dramatically. The city could use public funds to facilitate financing for residents interested in buying the property, which is now supported by state law. Down payment assistance based on income scale, highly appropriate and necessary in our community to maintain the kind of diversity and tenor that you want in our community, as well as the public-private partnerships with nonprofit developers to ensure that the units are truly affordable for many years to come. And 3, to continue to engage communities and including MVP in the process of determining the details and the sources and uses of the funding. I know you're afraid. I know it's been very, very challenging and the Donegan property element was very, very painful. We encourage you to take courageous action for us on behalf of us. The ad hoc committee was fabulous. Now we need your support.
I'm Maria Judith Alvarez, and also I am a member of St. Stephen's Church and leader with MVP. So I have a few minutes that MVP, we are excited that also to take this review for the housing recommendations, and MVP leaders are ready to work with the business, government, and civic leaders to turn this into a strong plan in that we can bring to both voters in November, and to organize and get out the vote campaign to support it. So thank you, and it's in you. I hope so you can support this, the work that we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hilda. Heather, Maria.
Dr. Norma Guzman Duran. I will be brief. So I know each of you care about this initiative. So at first I wasn't too keen on the idea about the survey. So each of you had asked, how are we going to be successful because of what has happened recently? All of what everyone has said, the survey, the engagement, adding people to this ad hoc committee, it's all doable. And you can still put it on the ballot. So if you're going to ask us to do work again, that's great. But we can still formulate the campaign to get the win when it gets on the ballot. Because if you tell us to go back and do more work and get the engagement and do the survey, then we're spinning wheels and it won't be on the ballot in November. But we're all willing to do the work. We're all willing to recruit our neighbor, right? And it's what I think Matt said this. The campaign would be putting community over self. That's the campaign, community over self. I don't know if Matt even remembers saying that, but he said it many times in the ad hoc committee, and that's the marketing campaign, because we know our community loves the community. We know we need workers. We want our businesses to survive, but we can do all of what you want, recruit more people, get more business owners, get more nonprofits, but we have to create the marketing campaign. I'm not a political strategist, but I'm good at it. It's a numbers game, right? It's a numbers game. If we got to do phone banking, if we got to, we'll do it. But let's still put it on the ballot and put all of our resources into those 6 to 8 weeks. We're all willing to do it, but you have to take advantage. Your politicians, you know this, you're elected officials. The city of Glenwood elected you. I wasn't here yet. Now I can vote though. But you were elected to do a job. We're here to help you, but we have to be very, very, it's all about the numbers game. And there's always a bunch of voters, but sometimes those voters don't get asked to vote, right? And then we do have to be cognizant of how do we create that marketing campaign to incentivize the homeowner? It is possible. I heard you, Mr. Hershey. I get it. And we all want to win, but let's take advantage of the momentum to put community over self. And we're willing to put the work in, but you've got to take advantage of the work that we're willing to do and the work that we already did. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Norma. All right. We have Ellen Dole, I believe, and Lacey King, who have their hand up that would like to join us virtually. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Fantastic vocabulary. I know. And sometimes even interrupt us. All right. Do we have them up?
This is Ellen. Am I on?
Yes, you are, Ellen.
Okay. Hi, good evening. I'm Ellen Dole. I live at 266 Red Cliff Circle in Glenwood, and I'm on the ad hoc committee and a member of the Housing Commission. And I'm just here to urge the council to now build on the committee's findings. It's a fantastic, diverse group of people who've put everything to help bring affordable housing into Glenwood. And I urge you to take the steps that are needed to transform these recommendations into action items that we can move forward and ensure that we're going to be able to build houses in Glenwood and provide homes for our families and our community. You have a lot of people who will work for it, and we'd like to work with you to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Appreciate that. Ms. King. Virtually as well. And then I see Eric Brotherson's hand up as well.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Lacey.
Hi. Well, I just want to first start by saying thank you to Clark and the team. That was an absolutely incredible presentation and something that's really inspiring. And I've heard the Donegan project be mentioned quite a bit throughout. And I just really want to say that I am so glad Clark said not to conflate what is happening here, because this is an important issue and it is absolutely something that council needs to act on. It's socially and environmentally unsustainable to continue business as usual. And this lodging and an attractions tax could absolutely help to provide some relief for this issue. And I really believe the true cost of tourism has not been properly addressed by the minimal accommodations tax that's currently enforced. And this bold action is absolutely needed. And I think it's past time that it should be brought to the table, allowing voters to decide if tourists should be responsible for giving back to the community that cares for them. So I thank you again for this committee's time putting this together. It was very moving, and I absolutely hope council acts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. We really appreciate those comments. Eric Brotherson.
Hello, sorry to not be there in person. So first off, Clark and the whole committee, thank you for everything. It was awesome to be a part of it for sure. I think we all did a fantastic job of really creating a good, nice framework and a framework that we can build upon it. So really how I envision next steps is really just folding in the ad hoc work to what Clark mentioned as that grassroots group that can be expanded out with it, which is going to be various ad hoc members, community members, business community, and really work on the next steps for political viability and really engage the business community that hasn't been exposed very much as of yet to all the hard work that the ad hoc has been doing. I'd love to be able to, as a committee, be able to ask city questions, staff, as they come up. I do feel it's important to not have this be a city committee, just to allow this group some speed of which to move, just so we can turn this around in 6-ish weeks. So Carl and council has enough time to do what you guys need to do on your end. And then as far as, support next steps, if you guys could help with survey, that would be phenomenal. That's one tool I envision, along with some other members that we would like to involve, just with our main kind of primary source of how we're going to outreach to the community and fold that in to the overall big picture of what we're trying to accomplish. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, Eric, and thanks for your participation on that committee. All right, anybody else from the room? Anybody else virtually? Anybody else non-virtually? Okay. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate all the time you spent this evening, all the time you've spent on this process, and we will now bring it back. We'll close public hearing and bring it back to council for comments or motion. Go ahead, Charlie.
I want to just, I can't even begin to thank the group, the ad hoc committee group, and how hard they've worked and the information they brought to us. We've had this presentation on the gap in funding when we work with Habitat in our recent agreement to work with them and building some affordable units on some land the city owns. I think it's a critical component and need in the city. We met on Wednesday morning with Colorado Municipal League and municipalities from throughout the area, including up in the Steamboat area, Little Yampa. And the common theme among every community is we need housing for our workers who are working in our community, are serving our community. One of the things that Habitat brought to my attention that it go like duh is when you give affordable housing, you give the families that are able to be in that housing and be able to stay there stability that they don't otherwise have. And that forms the foundation of a livable community, the type of community I moved here 46 years ago. So I'm going to make a motion that when we support the recommendation of the ad hoc committee, we ask you to continue your work with other people, that we authorize our city manager up to $50,000 if necessary for a survey to help that community. And we move forward as quickly as possible to come back to the council. So if this is a viable thing that we think we could have the community coalesce around and vote for, that we can get that on the ballot in November. So I'm going to ask, that's my motion. And could I have one comment on top of that?
Yes.
Well, I'm not.
Can I ask for friendly amendment to the motion?
I don't know.
Oh, well,
you could ask whatever you want.
Okay. I would also ask that from what we've heard tonight, from what we've seen over the years in the polls and the surveys and the citizens' comments, that we add that we direct staff that this be the #1 priority outside of finding an awesome city manager. Because we need somebody to keep the trains running on time. Would this be the number one priority for the next 5 months for this council? Would you?
I don't want to make it the number one priority because we have the comprehensive plan going on at the same time and staff time.
That's
It's
fine.
certainly a significant priority.
There we go.
Okay.
Top.
It's one of our top.
There we go.
Top.
Thank
Okay.
you. Is that
My
okay,
motion would be
Paul?
amended to add that.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Shelley, then.
I would just,
Sure.
kind of a quick comment and question. I agree with your motion. Rather than though, is it limited to just a survey? Because we had a lot of talk about community outreach and expanding. I'd like to really be able to ask staff to work closely with this group.
That was, it meant to be part of that. Yeah,
Okay.
certainly. I expect staff and Deborah goes the lead that I think we want. This is important. So yeah, the working with this group is very important. So yes, that's included.
So do you guys need that in the motion? Or is that a given that, because asking a volunteer group, they've done fantastic work, but they will need staff support in just getting that feedback going forwards.
I would say we probably don't need it in the motion, but I need you to understand that if you're asking us to make this a top priority and do community outreach and do a poll and bring it all back in 2 months, other stuff is going to slip. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
And
Sorry.
no, go ahead. I can go later.
Go ahead, Paul.
I'm just trying to get clarity on this motion that I seconded. That there is involvement from our ad hoc committee and its additional members in designing the poll so that we have that community input.
Absolutely.
Okay. And also just a comment on my side. Thank you so much. This is amazing, and it's great to see the work that you all have done and what you brought to us and engaged outside of that community. I'm already hearing that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said one more comment. I made my motion. It's because I forgot, as I said earlier. We have to engage the lodging community. We have to engage the attraction committee in this process. So as you reach out, I ask you to look at that, because without their support for this, or, we don't want them to be actively campaigning against us. My contact with both those industries, for the most part, is they have the same need for employee housing, but we need to engage them in the process as well as the rest of the community. And I just appreciate so much what you've done.
Go ahead, Ingrid.
I think I am in one of those comments where I say everything you all said. But more importantly is that I tried really lightly in the concept of applying a new tax, especially in the current climate. I don't think that this is not coming from our council. Our council didn't say this is something they wanted. This is something that came about through a dialogue about affordable housing. And how do we solve that? And how do we make decisions for this community that insulate us in the future? And without action, we're in this case, making an action by default. And it's an action that is not sustainable and that has long-reaching consequences on what our community feels like in 15, 20 years. So you guys are doing really good work, and we hope you have the support that you need. Please stay in touch with our staff on this. We're so excited to hear what you come back with, and we will understand if you say it's not the right time or do this. We're looking for your feedback, and we trust you based on what you've done thus far. And we thank you. Obviously, we can't thank you enough, because the time and energy and the resources you've already put into it have been an amazing opportunity to educate us all. And the naysayers, we would like you to get in front of them as well. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks. Marco.
Yeah, just real quick. I said it earlier. I love your positivity. I love it's contagious. I love the momentum. We need to move forward, and if I can help in any way, shape, or form, I'll go door to door. I'll do whatever I have to do, because I believe in this, and I will support almost any motion tonight to move this forward. So whatever we need to do, let's go.
Within the concept of taper.
You know what I mean.
Counselor Hershey.
It's easy to be against something. It's easy to be opposed to things, but sometimes you have to be a realist. And Clark, I grew up in Aspen. I know exactly what you're talking about from growing up in Vale. Our 40th high school reunion is this weekend or next. And none of the people I went to high school can live there anymore. They're all gone because Aspen didn't see this coming, and they can't house their workers or the people who made that a community in the 70s and 80s. But I have to be a realist. It's not about Donegan, really. And I've told you that. And I think I was the quote that said, look, that you use, don't conflate the two. It's just about a community that feels that they're not being heard and that things are being rushed upon them, and that we live in a small valley. And imagine Glenwood with too many people in it. And that's what they are worried about. And until you get a majority of people on board, this can't be successful. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. You know, I loved Carolyn's comment, if not us, who, if not now, when. Carolyn did my mortgage a couple years ago, made my housing more affordable slightly. So thank you for that. But, you know, I think, you know, to talk about briefly process, you know, I worked for the city of Aspen in 2007 to 2010, and the overwhelming majority of people that I worked with lived in employee housing and lived in an affordable housing. Some lived in rent subsidized, some lived in owner occupied. I mean, they were able to purchase. My boss, the recreation director, his boss, parks and recreation director, and the city manager all lived in affordable housing. Everybody from the lifeguards and custodians. So, you know, Aspen's not hollowed out. Pitkin County has 3,000 affordable housing units because they started on this in the late 70s, before some of us were even born. And, you know, we haven't. You know, we're sitting here in 2022. We're not surprised by it. We all know that it's a problem. I just read an article that you were quoted in, Clark, from 2016, where you said $400,000 to $500,000 houses is not affordable to our community. How cute is that? Bless your little heart. But, you know, to, you know, expand on the analogy, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And so I don't think while there's any more urgency now than there was 6 weeks ago, there's certainly more urgency than there was 6 years ago. So I think that we looked at doing this last September. We heard from the community. Some of you were in this room that said, just, you know, get a group together, get the community behind this, get a grassroots, get people on board. And that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what is happening now. And so we still find ourselves having to, you know, pick up the pace a little bit, this community. And we have the next 6 weeks that we really need to kind of push through this. And when I say we, I mean us as a community, but I'm looking at the folks there. I'd love to see real quick, just a show of hands of the people that spoke. How many of you would be willing to knock on doors and walk neighborhoods for this? Yeah, all of them. I didn't see one hand not go up. So thank you for that. Thank you for that dedication. I think you'll probably find a lot of your neighbors and friends, employees, and people who don't live in the community also willing to help. So I'm really excited about what's going on. I'm excited about the work you guys have done, the work that you're willing to do. I really want to thank this council, because I think this council has enabled and has provided supports that is allowing this grassroots effort to be fertilized and really grow. So I want to thank everybody here. We have a motion on the floor.
Depends on how we vote. Then he'll thank you again.
Well, I want to thank all the people that last year when we looked at this and said, hey, just wait, get this process in place and we'll support it. Thank you for that, because this is the right way to do it. Ryan, let's call the question.
Counselor Wusso, yes. Counselor Step, yes. Counselor Dem, yes. Mayor Godus, yes. Counselor Kaup, yes. Mayor Pro Tem, yes. Counselor Hershey, no. Passes 6-1.
Thanks, Ryan, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, anybody up here need a 5-minute break? Okay, we'll be back here at 8:51. We'll gavel us back in. All right, guys, we're a little behind schedule. Shockingly enough, Christian. So are there things, Deborah and Carl, that we could potentially, we do need, have an executive session that's going to require some thoughtful discourse. So are there things that we can kick off? Like all of
I
it?
mean, we absolutely have to certify the election results.
Yeah.
I think the rest of it, unless I'm missing something, staff, do we have to do tonight?
I think that these two items are fast, but.
Let's do them. Come on.
Okay, so when she said she thinks they're fast, that was related to you all.
Jen-
Approve all.
I just think we
Jen?
really need you guys paying attention in the exec session. So
Could we go to that quickly? Because I've had a very long day.
So Jen, can you do 16, 17 pretty quickly? Or
Can
16?
we skip them, especially 15?
I think we're okay to skip 15. Is that okay with everybody?
There's no support for 15.
What's that? Yes, we do. Yeah. Thank you.
16 is important.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I move to move or continue item 15 to the next agenda
I'll
or a
second
following
that.
agenda.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Sorry. Mr. Godus, Mayor Godus,
Yeah, go.
we just,
Why don't we do 15?
we just continued 15.
Okay,
I amend my motion to move 15, item 15 and 18 to a later time. And
I second that. Again.
moved by
Points in
Counselor
time.
Dame, seconded by Counselor Hershey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Daniela, we're really sorry. No, you sat through 3 hours.
But you learned a lot.
This is what democracy looks like. No, but truly, thank you for hanging out, and we are sorry that.
Danielle could put the order in for next week's dinner.
Yeah, she gets to select the restaurant.
Billy, thank you for being here too.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I'm here to present ordinance 2022-16, which is amending Title 80. Staff is requesting this additional language within the municipal code it's really a technical fix that would allow us to better be able to identify system improvement fees for categories where there isn't really a category. Specifically, those are class studio space, so yoga, martial arts, dance, and medical office buildings, because they don't really fit really well in the categories that we have. Additionally, there's one change noting that athletic clubs include aquatic facilities. So if it didn't have an aquatic facility, that it wouldn't be an athletic club, and that we would use real data. So information from a like business and square footage to estimate what that system improvement fee would need to be for water and wastewater, and that we would verify that after 12 months of use and make any corrections. So if they had underpaid, they would have to pay more at the end of the 12 months. And with that, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Any questions? It is, oh, go ahead. It's an ordinance, so we need to open it to public comment. Any public comment? We'll not close it to public comment.
She was so close.
Nope. Thanks. Go ahead, Shelley.
Thank you, Jen. And I would move that we approve ordinance 2022-16, amending title 080.
Second.
Been moved by Kyle, seconded by Counselor Dam. Ryan, let's call the question. Ingrid?
I did vote, sorry. I thought I pushed it hard enough.
It's unanimous.
Georgia.
What was unanimous?
The vote was unanimous.
What? Pro con?
All right, all right.
Pro.
Item number 17, Carl.
You got me.
Hang on here, sorry. Actually, it's not me.
White.
It's election results.
Ryan. It's Ryan, sorry.
I'm addressing everyone but Charlie. Let me get to that. So it was a successful election. It went really smooth. We had 2,400 votes exactly, which is 37 shy of a record, which was a 2020. A little bit of statistics. Of course, that was a presidential election. It was on the general ballot. So this is a special election, Glenwood only. So it's a record in my book. And yeah, certifying the results. Any questions?
What do we need to do? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So I know we're going to certify the results, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Hanlon, but does that just automatically rescind that ordinance that was passed, the annexation?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we don't have to repeal.
That was sort of where I was asking, Shelley, but just checking.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I move to certify the election results from the most recent election.
Been moved by Counselor Dam, seconded by Counselor Russo. Let's call the question, right?
It's unanimous 4.
Good job.
Thank you, Charlie. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, I think we've decided our next item. Is there anything that we need from city manager, city attorney prior to the executive session? Okay.
I would say, just for the public's benefit, before we go into executive session, something I realized when I looked at this block of text is that it doesn't mean anything to anybody other than the people who drafted the Open Meetings Act. So three subject matters in this executive session. The first relates to right-of-way acquisition, which may involve litigation. The second involves the IGA with the county for Mine Springs for detox services, and that is underneath the provisions for specific legal questions and directing negotiators, which is one of the exceptions to the Open Meetings Act that allows for an exec session. The third is to discuss a personnel matter for which the employee has not asked that it be done in open session. Turns out there's this little thing going on with the city manager. So we're gonna have a conversation about that. So anyway, with that, I think Tony's gonna read us in.
I was going to read you in, but I had a question. Can I make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to adjourn? So if anyone's watching, we can adjourn. So when the executive session concludes, we have adjourned.
Yes. Just add that to the end of the
You
executive
might need
session.
to take action at the end of it.
I don't think you will.
Is the search?
No, because it's inside Steve's authority. We're within a number, I think, that we can just do it at our level.
Can that door be closed? Oh, okay.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Could I get someone's, could I request someone hit stop on the recording?
I will.
At the end? Okay, thank you.
Which button is that?
It's this one.
Is
right
it the
here
button
that
that says stop? Okay.
Okay, so I'll read the preamble. We have an executive session for 3 matters scheduled on the agenda to discuss. The first is pursuant to CRS 246402-4B for a conference with the city attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. More specifically, right-of-way acquisition, including potential litigation. The second is pursuant to CRS 246402-4A, B, and E for the purpose of a conference with the city attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal issues and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategies for negotiations and instructing negotiators specifically related to Mine Springs Health and the county-wide IGA for detox service. The third is pursuant to CRS 246402-4FI regarding personnel matters which no employee has requested be in an open meeting, more specifically regarding the city manager's contract. Is there a motion?
I so move
I was
to
just
enter.
gonna make some motion.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go.
I move to go into an executive session. I also move for purposes of this motion to adjourn at the conclusion of this executive session. I move pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6402-4B for a conference with the city attorney, Mr. Carl Hanlon, for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, more specifically right-of-way acquisition, including potential litigation pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6402-4B and E, for the purpose of a conference with the city attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal issues and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators specifically related to Mind Springs Health and the countywide IGA for detox services, and pursuant to CRS 24-6402-4F and I regarding personnel matters which no employee has requested be in an open meeting, more specifically regarding the city manager's contract. Need a second.
Is there a second?
Second. And next time, can you mark it?
Been moved by Council Hershey, seconded by Council Dame. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Do I have everything?
Oh, also, just for the record, we have full city council members. Also in the room is City Manager Deborah Figueroa, City Attorney Carl Hanlon, and Police Chief Darris. And Technology
I think
Alyssa.
she'll be leaving.
Director Alyssa will be leaving us shortly.
Did you read the stay on point? Don't talk about anything that